Don't all
Motion-
jump at once.
Motion to approve the minutes from May the 30th. I'm sorry, what day was it?
May the 30th.
May the 30th, yep.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
First up, item number 5, we have Anne Marie Feeney, road closure for Battle of the Bands, March 5th through the 8th, 2020. I believe that is a bit of a misprint. It's actually a lane closure.
Right, that's right. It's a lane closure. Hello, everyone. How are you? Anna Marie Feeney, 234 East Camphor Street.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm requesting a lane closure for Vet Jam 2020. We're going to be holding the event in Donaldson Park the entire time, but we will be having car shows lining up near there, and, you know, we're going to have excess cars. We always do. And what I'm looking for is just to close that lane so that way where they're parking, there's a little added safety. We're not going to be using the lane per se, but it's just a buffer, a cushion, so that way as traffic is going up Main Street, we don't have to worry about maybe a child running out. We have that little bit of extra space.
Okay.
Aside from that, just the park and the lane closure, and we're good to go. It's going to be a major event. We have 4 days, 14 bands, all kinds of different events inside of the events. I put together a draft itinerary, and I can drop that off so everybody can read it, but it looks to be a major, major event for this town, and I'm very happy with what's going to be going on.
We thank you very much. We've enjoyed it in the past and looking forward to it in the future. Do we have any questions for Anne Marie?
Is this the first time you've done that many days?
We went from 1 to 2, and now we're doing, really, it's not 4, it's 3.5. Sunday, we're going to be doing what is being called Under God's Roof. And that's not going to be a rock concert. It's not going to be a show. We're inviting all of the Highlands County churches to send their praise teams. And we're going to do basically a praise concert for an hour and a half in the church. That's how we're going to shut the show down. So it's, like I said, it's very special, and we've gone out of our way to find things to make it even more special.
Very good. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll be looking for a motion.
A motion to approve the temporary closing of State Road 64.
No, not the road,
Not
just
road,
the lane.
The lane, just the outside lane?
No.
Inside lane?
The inside lane.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, I make a motion that we allow the road closure of the inside lane of State Road 64 for this event.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Anne
Thank
Marie.
you so much.
Thank you.
Under attorney updates, item number 6, charter revision.
The charter revision ordinance, if we have no objection, I'll go ahead and read the short title for first reading.
Go ahead.
It's an ordinance of the City of Avon Park, Florida, providing for a title for the ordinance and the 2019 charter amendments, approving the form of the charter amendments, approving the form of ballots for the election, approving the 2019 charter amendments, establishing an election date for approval of the 2019 charter amendments by the electorate, providing for severability of the provision, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date. Before we vote on this, we really kind of need a charter date. That's the date of the election. Do we have that?
It's the general election, November the 6th, I think.
November 6th?
The first Tuesday.
5th.
Fifth, it was 6 last year, wasn't it?
Fifth?
Yeah, the calendar's 2019, it's November 5th.
Okay.
Supervisor Elections already contacted us. She's placing an ad in the paper alerting the electors of the upcoming election and the qualifying period for the candidates. So that will appear shortly in the paper.
Okay.
I filled in the November 5th, 2019 date by hand, but I'll send you a revised version with that typed in.
And to be clear, it's ordinance number 2-19.
0219, yes.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Jerry on this? Or any other revisions?
This is the last chance.
Yep. Well, we still have
Well, it's
another.
first reading.
First reading. We still have a second
First
reading,
reading.
so.
I thought we had the first reading last week.
This
No, that
is-
was for the
Draft
other thing,
budget.
right, okay.
Right. You don't have any other questions? You looking for a motion?
I motion to approve the ordinance 02-19 as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions?
Just a comment that this will be on the November ballot if there is a city election this year.
Right.
That if there's not a city election, this would wait until 2020. Correct? Okay.
Correct.
Yep. All right, with no further questions, we'll call a roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under staff updates, we have amending the budget for 2018-19 fiscal year, ordinance 1-19. This will be the second reading.
This is a second reading of ordinance 0119, which seeks council approval amendment to the city's budget.
Do we have any questions on that? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve item number E7, amending the budget for 2018-19, ordinance number 1-19, second reading.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 8, we have budget amendment from contingency fund to general fund, in the amount of $4,850.
We had to do some emergency repairs at the airport terminal and didn't have quite enough money in the budget to cover that, so we need some contingency movement.
Okay. Have any questions for David on this?
I do.
Go ahead.
Was that the replacement of an air conditioning unit?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
One of the
Good
things,
thing.
one of the things I noticed on there that you went ahead and got a 16 SEER, even though I think basic SEER is 14, which would probably be, in my opinion, more than sufficient. But I don't mind the upgrade of a 16 SEER, but I think we'd be better off either next time or this time, if you can, to spend the money and get a 10 and 10 and get a 10-year on your labor, because the labor can be pretty expensive on a repair. And the parts is great if you get 10-year, but 1 year on labor is not enough to cover a large expense that would be cost you more than upgrading from a 14 SEER to a 16 SEER.
You're in that business, so you probably know better than I do, but it's been my experience that you can't get a 10 and 10 on a commercial property.
I think you can get at least a 10 and 5.
Okay?
So I just, I can research it a little bit more. I think my boss is out of town, but it'd be something I can find out and let you know for maybe next time.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions?
I just have a comment. I know that at least Long's in the past has had a warranty, or you pay a certain amount per year for all of your equipment. It's not an insurance policy, but it's kind of one of those where if anything goes wrong, you just pay your fee and he inspects and does everything with them all year long, and then just makes sure that they're working adequately
Maintenance agreement.
for a small fee. I'm not sure if he still does that or if,
You're talking about a maintenance agreement?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we're under one now, but I'll
Yeah,
check
because
out.
there was one, I think, for the rec building.
Okay?
But
Which
that doesn't
really
cover
need-
repairs.
No?
No. That just covers annual maintenance. and
Yeah, but they could diagnose, problems that would lead to repairs, or at least that's the thought. Anyway, just food for thought.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve item number E8, budget amendment from contingency fund to general fund in the amount of $4,850.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 9, we have the cost of sheriff for each citizen to include county tax rates.
At a previous council member meeting, Councilmember Spurlock requested details on the amount of tax dollars that residents of the city of Avon Park pay towards support of the sheriff's office with county taxes. This is one of those situations where I wish that Mr. Helms could be here to kind of walk y'all through this, because we haven't had our Finance 101 class yet, which I'm hoping we can schedule sometime in the very near future. But the way he explained this to me was that he took the taxable value of the city, the taxable value of the county, and there's 6.04% percentage taxable value of city versus county. The contract for law enforcement services with the sheriffs is $1.338 million. The sheriff law enforcement budget county-wide total is $18,814,655. Now, he took out court services, court security services, and corrections, the jail stuff. He took that out of that equation and went just with the law enforcement aspect of that. And if you look at, go down a couple of paragraphs where it says city population, 11,187. County population is 102,525. So the percentage of population of city versus county is 10.91%. So he came up with a formula that basically says, if you go back up to the third paragraph, if you're looking at the funding by the city using the population ratio, that's 3.244963. Funding by the city using the taxable value ratio is 2.393590. You'll see at the bottom there, funding per resident using the population percentage is $290 per person. Funding per resident using taxable value percentage is $214. One of the important things to remember on this is that probably, I don't know what the exact percentages are that don't pay anything, but you've got a large segment of the population that is completely exempted out of there because they don't pay property taxes. So I don't know that we can get you an actual true figure, but what we're looking at is using the one formula is almost $300 a year, $290, and using the other formula is $214 per year.
Okay, the one thing that this doesn't include, though, is when you show the total county population, it doesn't exclude cities of Sebring and Lake Placid that have their own police departments.
But they also pay county millage.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I just want everybody to make sure they were
And
aware
that's,
of that.
I believe, what you were asking me to get for you.
Yeah, a little more complicated than what I was looking at, but
A lot more
Agreed.
complicated.
David,
Yes,
may I
ma'am.
ask a question? On the last paragraph here, the $290, is that city or county? Which one is that? I didn't hear you when you said.
That's what the city's paying in
City.
county residents.
Yeah.
Each resident is paying that in county taxes.
And you did an average, because not everyone pays it, so what you did was
That's
you
what I
just spread it
mentioned.
across the entire population of the residents.
Correct.
Okay.
It could be more, obviously,
Some.
and then, right, so I mean, but averaging out 290, so that comes out to $3,244,230. So that's paid into the public safety to the county,
Correct.
Right.
and that's strictly for law enforcement.
Correct.
Okay. And that's on top of the 1.4 million that we pay in a contract.
1.3 and change, correct.
Okay. So I know that I had been asking kind of similar questions about this, because my concern is that I don't know how sustainable it is at our 30-cent mill to do this. If the county ends up raising its taxes in the future, I don't know, but if the city remains at 0.30 cents, then, you know, at what point does the 3% increase on the sheriff's contract get to the point where we will have to start making decisions on what to cut so that we can keep funding the sheriff? So I was hoping that we would be able to do some projections with either the actuarials or somehow do some, you know, future look at where we'll be maybe in 10 years from now, to see where we will have to start saving, or see whether or not we're going to have to raise taxes to be able to offset the expenses of what the sheriff might end up being in 5 or 7 years. So, I mean, that's just my feeling. I really believe that we need to know where we're gonna be, because we just don't want this to hit us. I know we can budget it every year, but just 2 weeks ago, we don't have money for this, we gotta find people for that. It just seems like we're starting to kind of see some effects of the skeleton economy that we were in terms of what we were budgeting in the past, and now we're starting to pay the price. So if we're paying the price in some departments, it's just inevitable that we're gonna start paying that with the sheriff. And I know that they're gonna increase, they're gonna demand more services or provide more services as well, so
I actually
I just wanna be ready.
I had a conversation with Colonel Brown today where we were discussing this. Where I've left it right now is that we're going to go with just the standard 3% increase in the contract. The sheriff's office is prepared to come, and there were questions about what it would cost for extra employees to have extra patrol and an extra sergeant, I think, in this area. They did discuss that with us. It's not cheap. It's not cheap, but they are prepared to come and discuss that with you if you want. We can do that at the next meeting. Our current contract with them expires September 30th, but as it stands right now, we're going to go with the standard 3% increase per year just to renew it. He's offering a longer contract, like a 3 to 5 year contract possibly, if we're going to look at actually increasing the number of units in this area. So that's something that we can be discussing if you want.
But didn't he say that he would uphold our ordinances and things of that nature free of charge once we did that?
Yes. Well, no, he's going to do that anyway. That's something that we've been working on changing some of our ordinances where they can do what Jerry was calling the snapshot ordinances. So yeah, we're still in the process on that. They're going to do that anyway.
That's not going to cost us any extra than
No.
3%?
No.
So if we renew, which we intend, it just rolls over, right?
Correct.
So we have 1.5 years to figure out where we're gonna be in 10 years. We have
Correct.
plenty of time to do the math.
That is correct.
So if that could be something that we just continuously work on, I mean, I would be very interested in seeing where we're gonna be. And it may be where we are totally being able to afford it, but, when we're fully staffed with all the other department needs, I guess it would be a better picture for the entire city, not just for the law enforcement.
And if we're gonna look at that, I don't think we need to look at more than one patrol officer. I don't think we need a sergeant to go with that, because this is actually the north quarters for the North County. So the old building that used to belong to us, still belongs to us,
Still
and
does.
run out. It basically covers the whole north end of the county, so I don't think we would need to have to pay for additional sergeant, but we could maybe possibly consider for one more patrol officer if the citizens wanted to go along with that, so we had more obvious sightings of police cars in the city. So I think I would limit it to just what it would cost for one more officer, not necessarily 2 or a sergeant.
But I don't know, and David, maybe you do, I thought that you could only have 4 patrol officers under 1 supervisor. If you want one more, then it would be 5, and then it's more than the technical amount. I'm not sure if 4 or 5 is where it stands.
Major Hood?
Generally, a span of control is gonna be 4 to 5 per sergeant. That's the thing. If we add any more in the city, you would need more, an additional supervisor for that span of control.
If you add 1 more, you still need another supervisor?
Yes, because we're already maxed out on the county resources.
Okay,
that
so
we're
then-
already providing.
There's your answer.
So that's 2 people.
But that's to help cover the whole north end of the county, not
Can you
just
come up to the microphone there?
not just to cover Avon Park. I mean, what you're saying is if we wanted one more officer, then you're saying we also have to add a sergeant, because that's what you would need to cover the north end of the county.
No, that additional sergeant would be dedicated to the city of Avon Park. So that sergeant would provide coverage in the city and would not go in the county. The sergeant that's covering the North District currently will just cover county, the unincorporated areas.
So let me ask you this, to be perfectly clear, Mr. Major, if we want one more patrol officer, you're saying we have to pay for additional sergeant too?
Eventually. And that could be discussed with the sheriff.
Okay,
But that's what we discussed with Mr. Flowers.
okay.
And the need for that is the expanding population? Oh,
There's-
no, that's because of the calls that people get at 11 o'clock at night, those types of things.
Correct. Calls for service,
The
annexation.
non-crim- yeah,
I think
yeah,
everything
noise and all that
incorporated.
stuff.
Everything's inclusive with that.
And then that would be subject to the 3% increase every year as well.
Yeah.
And a vehicle and all those other expenses that would come with those. Would both of them require vehicles or just one? You don't know?
That could be discussed. I didn't come prepared. I
Yeah.
just came to see what was discussed. So I
We're-
didn't come
we're just
prepared with any
contracted for
numbers.
one
Yeah,
vehicle.
I know. I'm just trying to, I mean, we have a whole year and a half to discuss it. If we're just gonna roll over the contract, which is, I'm presuming that's what you do, it just rolls over.
Correct.
Then we have all this time to kind of discuss that and, get those numbers for the future. Because we really do need to know where we're gonna be in
Yes.
5 years.
Correct. Yes, and there's a demand for services here currently, so something definitely needs to be discussed for the future.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Major Hood, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Major.
Okay,
So this was, this doesn't require any action tonight. This was
Right.
just catching up on information that you requested.
Okay.
we have anything else we need to add to that? Questions, anything?
I'm fine.
I just want to make sure that if we do have the general consensus of the board to let staff take a look, we have a lot of time to work on this. Put our minds so that you guys can figure out where we're going to be in the future.
Right. It's important, but there are a lot of other important things that's being worked on, so.
Well, it's a
Wherever you can-
$1.3 million contract. I think it's really important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to item number 10, nomination of TDC board member.
Okay, last week or 2 weeks ago when Deputy Mayor Bernard stepped down from the TDC board, y'all filled it with Galen Thomas. Since then, we found out that it does require an elected official to be in that capacity. So it's up to the council to pick somebody from your elected board to be on that.
I recommend Councilwoman Maria Sutherland. She's more than qualified and available, and I think she would do an excellent job.
I recommend Brenda Gray.
No.
How about this?
No.
Let's start with volunteers. Do we have any volunteers?
Are there volunteers?
Oops.
I'll do it.
Yes.
Okay.
There's your volunteer.
Yes.
All
And
right.
the reason why I said no, because I've served on more boards than anybody up here, so thank you, Maria, for
you're
volunteering.
welcome.
How many boards are you on now, Ms. Gray?
None,
Okay, that's what I thought.
but I have been in the past 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anyone wanting to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that we have Councilwoman Maria Sutherland be our TDC liaison, effective immediately or next meeting, which would be the last Thursday of this month.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Is Mr. Dunn here?
Yes, he is.
Oh, there you are. I have a question. Were you able to find out
You
if
have to
an
come to the microphone.
an alternate member can be appointed just in case moi can't go?
Benjamin Dunn for Highlands County. Historically, there's never been any alternates for the TDC board members. So if you can't show up, then that's
You
what
just
we
don't
do a
show
roll
up.
call before, so we know who's coming, so we know if we have a quorum or not.
If in the future your bylaws change, could that be changed so that it mimics what the HRTPO does?
Yeah, if the bylaws were changed, then yeah, we could.
It wouldn't be
we could change
bylaws, would it be by ordinance?
Or yeah, by ordinance, yeah, we could change it. If it was changed, then we could change that. But as it is now, we don't have alternates.
Okay, I just, looking for backup, it's always a good thing. Plan B, there's plenty of Plan Bs up here.
Yep.
Okay.
Ms. Gray.
No, no, no.
Plan C?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any last words, Maria?
No.
All right. We'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 11, Booker Johnson property purchase.
This concerns some property at 203 Williams Gray Court. Mr. Johnson, here he is right now, Booker Johnson, retired major from the sheriff's office.
Thank you for your service.
Spent many, many years protecting your citizens here. He's a good man. But there's a piece of property across the street from his house that he's actually been taking care of for the last couple of years now, just so it wouldn't have additional code enforcement issues put on it. I'm going to read you my summation on this thing and then my recommendation. This particular address has built up over $21,000 in fines and costs associated mostly with code enforcement. There is interest from Mr. Johnson to bid on the lot for back taxes through the county clerk's annual auction next spring. Mr. Johnson would like to know that the daily accrued fines could be waived before he commits to bidding on the property. The city has actual hard costs, including demolition of the house, of $4,125.30 that would not be waived. Mr. Johnson understands that the hard cost would still have to be paid, but would like to know that the city could waive the recurring fines. It should be noted that Mr. Johnson has been providing the mowing for this lot, which has kept additional code enforcement issues from occurring again. The purchase of this property by any party would also place it back on the tax rolls. My recommendation is to agree to waive the daily recurring code enforcement fines to any party that successfully purchases the property through the county bid process. I couldn't ask you to do this specifically for him because we don't know that he's going to be the successful bidder on the property next spring at the thing. And again, this would not waive the actual hard costs of $4,125.30. So he understands that, and there's back taxes on this that he would be willing to pick up as well to make the neighborhood look better. That's what this is all about. The daily accruing fines of the $21,000 and stuff, it really doesn't cost us anything. It's just goes on and on and on and on because they haven't been paid. So in order that we can get a citizen like him that's interested in purchasing it, putting it back on the tax rolls and making it better for the neighborhood, why wouldn't we entertain the idea of waiving some of those fees?
Right.
That's where we're at.
Well, so what, tell me if I'm wrong, it looks like what you're saying that the fines don't reoccur. That doesn't necessarily mean that the existing fines go away. That just means they don't continue to build up.
There's no new fines being put on it right now because he's taking care of the property.
Okay, got it.
But
What
what
you wanted to do is waive the 21,000.
which may be more by the time this
Okay.
even comes around to it because it keeps rolling over as unpaid.
Weren't we supposed to come up with some kind of a policy on what we were going to do with this because we've done it many times? We had a certain percentage so far that we deducted them, and I guess for now we might as well, I would suggest we do the same percentage, but we need to get this under control.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb has been that the hard costs are not waived, and then there was a certain percentage
Right.
of the actual fines that were paid. Obviously, Jerry is going to not agree with this, but he would definitely like to have a policy in place, right?
I would, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
I've mentioned that before. That's all you remember is I think you need to have consistency with regard to these types of forgiveness.
Right.
And otherwise, you're going to have problems with regard to people saying, why'd you do it for them and not for me?
Yeah.
What's the difference? So,
Well, we have a little bit of time on this particular property because it's not coming up until spring. So there's really nothing that has to be done here tonight.
He would like some kind of a commitment that
Yeah.
y'all are willing to do that.
Right.
he's going, in order to bid on it, he wants to know if that's going to be an additional expense that's going to be
Well,
on there or not.
do you
Yeah.
foresee a policy that's going to have additional costs other than the 4125, other than the hard costs?
That's totally up to you all.
I mean, I remember years ago, there was a 2.5% of the accruing fines, but then that went away at some point. So I don't know if that's something that would, I mean, I would be in favor of just doing exactly what's in this memorandum.
And that's what we did for the last guy that was here as well.
We've done it several times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't object whatsoever for him to put in, to reduce this. I'd like to see something where it makes it to where anyone that wants to take a piece of property in the city that has fines and liens on it and stuff, to come here, because it's a good way to clean up the city.
Yep.
That would be
My only
great.
suggestion would be that we have an agreement so that you get something out of it, you know, with regard to end product. So somebody might just buy and speculate on it and let it sit idle for 10 years. If you want to put it back in the tax rolls, then maybe you want an agreement as part of your policy, which agreement would basically say, if we waive this, we do so only if you're going to put this property back in the tax rolls and it's going to be utilized within
But-
so many years, you know.
I personally don't like that because, you know, any financial issue could happen to the buyer, and then next thing you know, they don't do anything, and then what, we're gonna go there and take it?
Well, you can reconsider the financial issue that comes up. But if you do it now, somebody could say, well, you know, I'm gonna put it back on the tax rolls, and this, you know, when I do the bid, I'm gonna build something and it's gonna be nice, and then nothing's ever done. I have seen that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Jerry, let me ask a question. Wouldn't, if, once they bid on it and it's their property, wouldn't it automatically go back on the tax roll anyway, whether they do anything with it or not?
It depends on the value of the property. I mean, sure, you don't have any property taxes, at a low amount. If you build structure on it, then you're starting to build enough to have that property tax on there.
But if it's that small of a property, they're not gonna be able to put any structure on it anyway. We're talking about and on the south side, we're talking about real small areas of land. If a house could be, and it's a corner lot right now, and if, with the setback rules and everything now, I doubt very seriously anything could be built on that.
Well,
Would you say?
I would agree.
If it's not usable at all, then I mean,
Parking, I can see it for that. That's about it, and keeping it, the neighborhood nice.
okay.
You
All
can
I'm
put a
suggesting,
vegetable
I don't
garden on
make
it?
these, I
Yeah.
don't make these rules. I'm asking you all to make the rule. I'm just throwing out a suggestion with regard to an agreement like that. If it doesn't apply in this circumstance, it wouldn't apply. But, it doesn't matter to me, because
Yeah,
I'm
I
not the one that's either
understand that.
getting the taxes or having to worry about it. So I just, throw out that as a suggestion, because I have seen in the past, in another one of my cities, where they've forgiven the fines, and then they're still idle,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone is objecting to doing something similar to what the memorandum says. I mean, everyone seems to be in consensus with that. So,
I just, one comment, I don't have any objection if somebody else is going to purchase the property and put it on a tax roll, but as far as existing owner has to be relieved of the fines, then that's a whole different story, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You are the existing owner right now.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying is in the future, if somebody comes in there and says, I haven't been able to take care of my property for 10 years, will you forgive my fines so I can put a new roof on there? I just don't agree with that. I
what do
think-
you mean by you are the existing owner?
The city owns the property for back,
Well, not unless you,
No.
not unless you quiet title on it.
Right.
And so, there are groups of properties, I mentioned to you before, that, David Tong at my office can
yes.
quiet the titles on others, and you would own them.
Mm-hmm.
But this doesn't sound to me like one that you'd want to do that for, because it has so little value if a structure can be built on it.
Okay.
And I know what you're saying, Jim, because we did have a business on Main Street where it went from the husband, then it went to the wife, then it
Right.
went to a cousin, and each time they tried to get everything forgiven because one would buy it from the next, and now the city owns that building.
Well,
I think there's also a property on North Lake Avenue in Charles where we did that, and then the people turned around, did a little bit of work on it, and then either sold it or gave it to a realtor who has it up for sale now.
Well, I think that we can make a claim on any other property owned by the person that owns the property before. So they built up the fines. Any other property they own, certainly in the county and probably in the state, we can go after because of the lien. But, as I understand it, if it is sold for taxes and then they get a surplus over the amount of taxes as part of the bidding, that's going to go to the owner.
Right.
So this property is basically owned by the city, not in
It's
one way?
not owned by
Well,
the
no, if
city.
we don't have the quiet title, we don't.
Okay,
We don't.
but as far as the previous owner, not available, correct?
No.
No. All right, then I have no problem with just go ahead and do that with this property now, so this gentleman can make plans. Of course, if we do it now, then the whole county knows about it. and
Well,
you
we've
might
already
get
done it
people
several
outbidding.
times. I mean,
Yeah,
we
it's
have-
not a secret.
yeah, it's not a
They
secret.
might have to worry about somebody outbidding them for
So
the
as long
property.
as I've been here, you've been doing it.
Yeah, we just need to go ahead and have that discussion and get that policy in place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think we have to have a special meeting. We've been talking about this for a long time. We need to
right.
get,
And as far as making a motion here tonight, could we actually make a motion to do exactly what this memorandum says?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. You've done it in the past,
Okay.
as you mentioned, and he's kind of in a short spot here where he's got to either bid or not bid in a short amount of time, so.
Okay. All right.
Could I just add,
Yes.
for clarification on your question as to
Yes,
the
sir.
previous owner? The previous owner is deceased.
okay, that answers that. Well, then again, I still have the question on here. Are we forgiving the 21,000 in fine, or are we stopping the recurring code enforcement
Both.
fines? 'Cause it looks to me-
There's no more fines on it because he's maintaining it.
Okay,
So you would be eliminating the 21,000 and only charging the 41,2530.
Okay.
And I'll ask around a couple of larger city people I know, because we've got our Florida Municipal Attorneys Association prom coming up here pretty soon, so I'll ask around and see if anybody has any policies like that, because I know this is a really big thing since 2008.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people have been doing it, so.
Appreciate it.
Could I also, here again, Booker Johnson, 202 Williams Gray Court.
Yes, sir.
The way the clerk of courts explained this to me, because it was actually a big eye opener when I went there, and she opened this can of worms up as to how far back that this is going as far as the ongoing existing code enforcement fines that are still accruing
Interest or whatever.
interest on it.
Yeah.
When it last went from the city to the county for auction, at that time, it was just back taxes that was at $3,333. The 20th of every month, that increases.
The back taxes
The back
do.
taxes
Right.
does.
Yeah.
But it
Someone's
has
gotta pay
nothing
the
to
tax
do
on it.
with the ongoing
That would
interest
be
of
on
your
you.
code enforcement.
Yeah.
Right. That has nothing to do with the city, though. The tax
Exactly.
part doesn't
Correct.
have anything to do with us.
Correct, I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But-
So that would be an additional expense that you would be incurring when you purchase the property, or if you've already purchased those taxes.
Yeah, but he's asking about the code enforcement stuff that's continuously incurring.
Well,
That's what you're asking about, correct?
yeah, so that 21,000, if there's an accrual that's, or occurring additional, I mean, if you're maintaining it, there ought not to be any more, new code violations. It ought to,
Well, here again, just because me being me, I took upon myself, not the city asking, I pay every month to have that lot mowed to keep it from being growed up. If it was in your front door, you would probably want something done with it. And the way and not knocking anything, the way the code enforcement action is going on, it's nothing being done to it. So I myself have it mowed. I pay for it out of my pocket. I'm not asking to be reimbursed one dime for that.
all you're looking for is to have the 21,000 waived, and only to pay the actual hard costs of the city, which are court fees and whatnot, and all the other hard costs that we've done on the building.
The
or
demo.
Demolition
Demolition.
of 41,2530. So you would walk away with only paying 41,2530.
Well, the way the
Plus the
clerk
back
of courts
taxes.
explained is,
Well, but that's with the county.
is the city's choice whether it goes back to the county for auction of 2020, whenever that is, that date is. And at that time, yes, I'm committing to hopefully bidding and buying the property.
But right now, that has nothing to do with us. What you, like Maria said, all what you're looking for is possibly asking this council to waiver the.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
okay with that.
Yeah, I am
For
too.
anybody.
So what you need.
For anybody.
Right. Yeah, and it's a blanket on just on the property for
who,
anyone,
yeah.
whoever wins the
Whoever
bid.
buys it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you continue to maintain it, then obviously no more fines will be imposed on it. So, I mean, that's up to you if you want to continue to maintain it.
Right.
And just to be on the safe
Yes.
side, I would make the motion so it would be effective after the purchase, whatever bid. So we, because then obviously the previous owner doesn't get anything, or they're, even though they're dead, they have heirs and so
Yeah.
on.
Right.
So,
Okay. All right, is there anyone wishing to make that motion?
So you're saying, Jerry, to make the motion effective after the bid is done?
yeah, to whoever purchaser purchases the property in the bid process.
Okay,
So moved?
so moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions, anything else you'd like to say,
That's
Mr.
it.
Johnson, anything?
That's an amount of
Nothing,
21.
and I appreciate your time on it.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking care of the property.
Who seconded that?
Brenda?
Okay. Thank you.
And that is an amount of 21,000, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
And just to
Motion.
confirm, just on that, there will be no more imposed fees on that unless it starts going into disrepair or
Correct.
overgrown again, whether he does it or not.
Correct.
Right, okay. Then he'd have to come back and get those waived again. Okay.
Motion carries.
He's been doing it good. I didn't know who was cleaning it up, but at least I had not received any more calls on it.
Yeah.
Somebody's been keeping it clean, and it wasn't the city.
He and I have been talking back and forth about this for about 3 months now, trying to
Oh,
get
okay.
to
I
this point
appreciate
here.
you,
But
Mr. Johnson.
thank you, Booker.
Yep, we thank you very much. Not many residents out there that's willing to go through the struggle that he's gone through to keep that property looking nice, so we thank him a lot for that. Moving on, item number 12, we have the CCNA Polson Agreement for DEO US Highway 27 project.
City has in place a continuing contract for engineering consulting services with Poston Engineering. The agreement, valid for 5 years, serves as the umbrella agreement for engineering work Poston performs for the city. Under this agreement, the city must negotiate sub-agreements for each project. The sub-agreement for the DEO US 27 project will come before the council at the June 24th meeting for approval. And that's what this draft is here.
Okay, so what you're doing is, you're gonna bring that back, you're gonna bring the final agreement, the project agreement forward. There's also, I sent you all the provisions that have to be in that, according to the grant. So if you want to include those.
This has nothing to do with the new core
yeah.
issue, right?
No, this is the grant
Okay.
work. This is design on the lines. I mean, we're walking that issue because clearly, but for Nucor, we wouldn't be doing these lines, but it's for the expansion to that area according to the grant, because the grant is very clear it can't be for one customer.
Right. Okay.
Isn't this the agreement between us and Poston Engineering?
Yes.
As part of the library of engineers,
Yeah.
right?
Right, well, we have the CCNA agreement, and that's that basic agreement. But we have to, for each project, we have to have a separate agreement. And in this case, that separate agreement has to be fairly specific with regard to some of the terms that the grant requires be in every agreement, because they're not in this agreement.
Oh, Poston Engineering is not in
Public
this
crime,
agreement.
public crimes, things, and so, I don't know if they were in the original bid or not, package, but those, and the insurance has to be checked to make sure that it has all the terms they require for that and so on. Indemnification has to have a specific indemnification of the state, DEO, all that stuff. Those types of provisions have to be in there in order to comply with the DEO grant.
Okay, questions?
This doesn't cost us anything right now.
Correct.
Right,
Is
The
there
one
an
on the 24th will.
right.
is there an option in the contract so we could get out in 30 days if we decided to?
That would be,
I think all of our agreements have that, don't they?
Okay, I mean, that's what I thought, I just wanted to make sure. Jerry?
well,
Is that correct, Gary?
yeah, you have to build it into the project one. It's not in this one, in the master agreement, but if you want it, it needs to be in that agreement, and that's generally how we do engineering agreements.
So
Yeah,
we're
they-
just saying that he's gonna be in the pool and that he's
Correct.
covered, and when his time comes up, that this.
Well, no, his time has come up. We've selected him
Okay.
for this,
Okay.
I mean, that would be the process of, he did the first part, now this is for the second, the remaining part of the line design. You've already approved the first part, as you recall. That was originally approved by the previous administration, and they
Yeah.
did stuff, and then we had to ratify it, as you recall.
Right.
And now this is the second part. I said we really need to have an agreement with them for the remaining portion, and it needs to comply with the DEO grant now that we know what the DEO grant looks like. So that was my request, that we get this together and that you have a figure other than that they're going to finish the design.
Right. Okay. Any other questions?
Or is this saying to run the line down 27 to come across? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. Well, have we just threw away the other route that I suggested?
No,
It
we're
won't
going to
work?
discuss that in a minute.
Right.
Sorry?
We're discussing that in a minute. This is just on the agreement with Poston for right now.
To
That's
have
what I'm
them as an
asking, but
engineer.
where, is it an agreement with Poston as to where he's going to put the line?
No.
Well, this is,
Okay,
this is,
okay,
this
that's
is
all I
to,
wanted.
this is to allow
Cool.
him to bid on it.
I'm sorry.
This is to allow him to bid on it. This has to clarify some things, some requirements.
David clarified more. I just wanted to know where it was going.
Right. But the
It's actually, the bid's already been done. That's what where the master agreement came from. This is just to allow him to finish the design.
Right.
And, wherever the design takes us, that's where it takes us. But this is what will authorize that finish of design.
Right. But the main sub-agreement will be brought to us on June 24th.
Right.
Right. Okay. Questions? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
Oh,
No, you don't need a motion.
Don't think you
Don't need a motion?
No.
Okay. All
We'll be
right.
Doing that on the 24th.
Got it.
Okay, the next one is Councilmember Spurlock had several questions on some continuing projects. I'll just take these one by one as we've got them. Follow up on discussion on the insurance company payment for Brickell Building. As you'll recall, their adjuster, Matt Baker, has an open claim on this, and they have offered a $100,000 payment for some of the hurricane damage. We have put that on hold until we get the second indoor air quality report done, which that should be any day now. We should have that. And at that point, Mr. Baker is going to come back here on site, inspect the building with me. We're going to go through a spreadsheet of everything that's been spent on that since Hurricane Irma, and hopefully he'll understand where we're coming from. The glitch on this is that they had been told there was some damage to the roof just prior to the hurricane. That wasn't really documented. I don't know where we are with that, but he is very willing to keep this as an open claim and come back and talk to us at that point once I get that IAQ finished. At the same time, he's going to go with me out to Classic Caladiums, because that particular building, there was never a claim submitted for that. But he understands that there was some damage done from the hurricane that was documented. It just wasn't sent to them by previous administration. But he's very open-minded about that and wants to come here and look at both those facilities as soon as I call him and say, come on down. So that's where we are with that one.
So David, he basically represents the insurance company. Who represents us in far, if there's any negotiations with that? I mean, insurance
David
people.
does.
Okay, so you would take care of that?
Mhm.
Okay. With the help of an engineer assistance if you
Yep.
need to? Okay.
Yep.
Want to make sure we had somebody.
So David, what you're saying is originally the amount for the building was 100,000? The roof was replaced by the city, but that is not going to be part of the insurance?
The roof was replaced by the city after the hurricane.
Right.
That is definitely going to be part of the insurance. That was
Okay.
almost 100,000 right there.
Okay, and then the mold remediation and stuff could
All of
exceed
that.
who knows how much, and
All
that's
of
what
that.
you two are going to negotiate on top
Correct.
of? Okay, so we're hopefully going to get more than 100,000.
Yes, hopefully.
Okay.
Any other questions on the insurance portion of the Brickell?
I do. Is
Go
it the
ahead.
same insurance company that we currently have, or was this an old insurance company under a separate?
Thompson Baker?
Yeah, are they currently for all their assets right
Yes.
now? They still
Mhm.
are?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything
Okay.
else on that?
No.
All right, city employee list. You have got in front of you the employees that have been added on or substituted, or y'all had asked me in March for a list of everything that had changed since November, and I provided that to you, and now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 that have been changed since then, and some more that are open positions. You have that sheet there in front of you,
Got it.
okay?
Questions on that?
Well, just a little bit concerned that we're searching for money to try to finish up some projects and move some money out of the general fund and things of that nature. I'd just like to make a motion that we freeze all raises at this point in time.
You do realize that if you freeze raises, we have unions that get
Well,
automatic
the
step
union
raises that
the
you
union
cannot.
would be excluded from that, but the ones that are not, put a freeze on all of those.
Yeah, I mean, instead of having a freeze, I would rather just have a conversation and ask the questions that you're concerned about. And
Well, I just think we're spending too much money.
Motion on the floor, you need a second or not?
do we have a second on that motion?
Second, for the sake of discussion.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Continue. You were saying? You were concerned that we're searching for money?
That's right.
Okay. All right, is there anything in particular about the hiring or pay changes that concerns you, or is it just as a whole?
As a whole, we've got 4 open positions, and we've given a lot of raises and all. I just think we need to freeze them at this point in time.
Okay, we have not given a lot of raises. I don't know what you're talking about on that. We have adjusted some. We've taken some out of a part-time position and put them into full-time positions.
Well, I don't have many as many, and maybe that was a bad statement on my part, but we have given raises.
We've adjusted some pays.
Okay. What now?
We've adjusted some.
Well, you can call it whatever, but I have trouble with this list that I got tonight that looks like it was hastily prepared compared to this.
You asked
list
for it
right-
today.
No, I didn't ask for this today. I said,
that
the last
request-
thing I said to you meeting before last was, I said, be sure and bring this list to the meeting because I'm going to talk to you about it. And then it's not on the agenda that way, and I called back and I said, I got to have this list. This list here and this list here are 2 different things, but you have combined them.
And I asked you twice last week if you were talking about this
And-
list.
yes, I
And you
told you
said
that.
yes, that's what you were talking about.
Okay, but-
Today, it got to me that you wanted that, which is over and above what this was. Because I specifically said, are you talking about the one that we gave you March 12th? You said yes.
This is a communication breakdown. I wanted an updated list from this right here, where
Okay.
you and I could talk about where we have somebody at a certain grade. I wanted to make sure that's what we're doing.
If you have a problem with the way that I am putting people in different positions, please discuss that with me.
We talked about that on the phone. I told you there was nothing particular I was looking at.
Right.
But what I'm particularly looking at, other than one person, is the overall thing. And I'm just asking that we put a freeze on all raises at this point in time.
Okay, you realize that there's 2 open positions down there that I am required by DEP to fill. I wrote that on there, required by DEP. We just found that out a few weeks ago at the wastewater treatment plant.
So those are operators that are required to cover the, it's statutory.
16-hour shifts, and that's never been done.
Chapter 62 of Florida Administrative Code
Yeah.
is required.
So if you freeze this, then you're putting some handcuffs on me here.
Well, that would be a freeze on hiring. That's not what you're saying. You're saying you want to freeze on raises,
I
not.
said freeze on any raises that we got right here is what I'm talking about. That's what I want.
Okay. All right, so that doesn't encompass any hiring. So the rate at which they're hired would not be dictated by this motion, correct?
Well, that's the problem. I mean, if you have a employee, I forget the name of it, but you have it listed what a particular employee gets when they're hired in your personnel manual, and you generally do. That you couldn't raise that at this point unless you authorize them again, and you may not be able to. For operators, are really tough to get from other people. That's where new ones aren't produced as quickly as we try and steal them away from somebody else. And the way you do that is you pay them more. So that might kind of hamstring you there a little bit, if in fact you have a pay grade with a certain pay associated with it. And I don't know if you do, you don't. I'm just simply throwing that out there. So if you have an operator 2 at $16.50, then in your manual, you could not raise it at that point.
I would have to run some numbers on this again, but I believe that the last time that we did this, your actual number came up to $100 an hour less than what it was before I took over. Now, we've obviously changed some of those in there, but I don't think we've changed it $100 an hour. We were actually that much cheaper.
Well, would some of these things be fixed by when we go over the personnel policy, Stanley?
Do what now?
Would some of these, your concerns, would they be taken care of once we get around to going over the personnel policy changes?
The budget.
Well, some
budget.
of my concerns would have been taken care of if this list that I got in March had have been the same list that I could compare to here in June, and that's what I asked for.
So why don't we just provide that at the next meeting?
Yeah, that'll work.
He wants a complete list that we had in March, with whatever these are, a complete list again.
I'm just gonna say this, y'all are getting real close to the day-to-day operations of what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm throwing that out there.
Well,
Stanley, I just have a question for you. Are you talking about, you're not talking about a hiring freeze where he can't hire people?
Nothing
You're
about
just
hiring.
talking about any raises for anyone
that's already
is
on the
in
payroll.
existence
That's
as an
already-
employee.
That is correct.
Which-
That is correct.
Okay, which right now you cannot do that to union employees like firefighters or the general
Right.
non-exempt
Right.
employees, because those get a mandatory required according to their contracts, their bargaining agreements rather.
Correct.
So what you're saying is other employees that have already been hired, no raises for them.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is
May I
correct.
ask a question? Stanley, if, I just want to just make a statement, well, no, get your thought, is that if the city manager feels, or a department head feels that a certain employee that's not union, maybe union, what have you, should get a raise, 2-cent raise, what have you, and he did that recommendation, wouldn't that be the city manager's position to decide if that person would get a raise or not? And I'm just stating that because the employee's salary has already been budgeted.
Right.
So it's
So-
fixed, so he wouldn't be able to give raises because everyone's already budgeted.
I'm not giving raises.
No, I know,
He's
but
not.
that's what I'm
He's
saying.
moving money around.
No, but
I
that's
can
what I'm
see that.
saying.
Yeah, that's what we've done, is moved it around. I want this to compare with this, and this is not working that way. This is a hastily prepared thing.
Are you talking about people that got a raise because they moved to another position? Or do you think somebody got a raise?
Well, I'm taking
in
like-
an existing position when David came on board?
Okay, let's say somebody like
Just give-
administrative assistant clerk on this one right here, the number one on here. The salary is $30,846.40. Is that actually what they're making?
I don't have that list.
Which
with me
list are
now.
you looking at?
He's
Just
looking
looking
The
at
one
the
you
first
provided
list.
me in March.
The one you provided in March, okay.
Is that what they're making?
Well, she's gone.
Okay.
She
Is
quit right
execu-
before I got here.
Is the executive assistant making $35,360?
Which one are you talking about now?
The fourth one down on the list, executive assistant.
The fourth one down on my list is June Fisher.
Well, this is a list you gave me.
What's the name on there, Stanley? That you're talking
There's
about?
no name on it. It's just the job
Oh.
and the position additions and deletions, 022, 02, 09, 19. Turn it over, what's on the back?
This is the one that you got originally. This is the one that was March 12th. This was February. That was where we were looking at open positions and stuff. This
Okay.
was the actual list that y'all asked for.
Where is?
Take this one.
Okay, where is the one that will balance these two?
Try to speak in the microphone, David, if you can.
Where's the one that would balance these two?
Yeah.
This is what y'all asked me for. You asked me for everybody that had been, a list of the employees from February, or from November until March 12th.
Okay.
This is the list, both sides of this paper.
Okay,
Is what you asked for.
okay.
That's what we provided.
What I'm trying to provide, just say like the executive assistant, is that the salary that the executive assistant's making?
Could we set up a meeting
Pretty well.
between these two and, Ricky or whoever needs to be done, or Brenda Dane, or whoever controls these figures? Could we set up a meeting so everybody could go through that? I mean, so Stanley can get all the questions he's got answered?
I'll do whatever y'all ask me to do.
Stanley, would you be willing to do that?
Do what?
To have a meeting with David and
Sure.
whomever he needs to go over these numbers?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And then you could bring it back and then we all can discuss it.
But you see, I don't have this list right here. I never got this list.
Okay. I don't have the list either. All I got's this one.
Okay.
That's the one I had.
I have it
Y'all,
listed somewhere.
y'all got it in March.
Yep.
Yes, I have it. I saved everything.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor, it needs to be
You
disposed
might not
of.
have been here.
All right. We've got a motion and a second. Any further questions on the motion?
I just want to clarify something on the motion because
Go
I'm
ahead.
still confused. Stanley, you're not talking about hiring freeze. You're
I
talking.
have nothing to do with hiring. It's only about the people that are already employed, excluding the union, which would get their raises no matter what.
Okay, so David, it's my presumption that whoever you have hired right now, you hired them and you hired them. So they're already getting paid whatever you hired them at. So until we work on our new budget, there won't be any additional monies for those employees if you foresee raises until the new fiscal year. Am I correct?
If that's what you pass,
No, that's what I'm asking.
that's the way I understand the
Without,
motion.
without the motion, she's asking.
Yeah, if there was no motion, what I'm asking is if, unless there's a raise, okay, you already hired everyone that you want, you might hire more people that you need.
Nobody's getting raises.
Okay,
Well, so you can either vote this up or down, this motion, or you can have a motion, subsidiary motion to postpone.
Or you can withdraw the motion. And the second.
That's not usually
No.
recommended.
Let's postpone it, or.
well, if you're gonna get
If you
more
postpone-
information.
if somebody makes a motion to postpone indefinitely, that does away with the motion.
I'll go get
You
more
can't, you can't
information.
withdraw motions.
I make a motion that
You
the,
can't. Unless you're gonna amend it. We already have a motion on the floor.
You can make a motion to postpone.
You can have a motion
that's
to
what I was gonna
postpone.
do.
Oh, sorry.
Is that
You can
okay?
do that. Does anyone want to make that motion?
No.
I'll make the motion, we postpone it till we get all the satisfactory numbers from Mr. Spurlock and anybody else on his council.
That's the most motion. And that'd be a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Motion to postpone indefinitely.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the second motion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
On the second motion?
Yes.
Brenda, I won't say nothing else tonight.
No, I want
Go
you
ahead.
to, really. You could
We don't
really
have a problem
confuse
with
me.
it. Go ahead and call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
No.
Wait a minute, now, your
Your-
motion you're voting on is postponed. This, the original motion to
No,
place
I don't
for
want to
freeze.
postpone.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Councilmember
He
Spurlock.
doesn't want to postpone it.
Yeah, I say postpone it. I mean, I agreed to do that. Should I go in?
Yes or no?
So if you want to postpone it, your response to them would be yes.
Exactly.
But she doesn't want to postpone. Her answer is no.
Right.
No.
You voted no?
Okay.
Councilmember
Yes.
Spurlock is no. Councilmember Sutherland.
We're postponing, right?
No,
You
you
already-
can't talk
you already
like
voted.
that.
Okay, you know what? Okay, you know what? No.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
So
Motion.
no have it.
All right, so the motion did not get postponed, so now back to the original motion. Do we have any further questions on that?
Now, this motion is to
Have a
freeze the
freeze.
raises.
Correct. Any further questions?
And if they are, if this motion passes, then Stanley will still get the information that he needs,
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. of
right?
course.
Yes.
Okay. And then you can always bring it back, right?
Of course.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
No.
Mayor Anderson.
No.
Motion carries.
All right, there you go. You have a raise freeze. Congratulations.
Which we pretty much had anyway, but that's okay.
Exactly.
All right. Item number 14.
Street signs that you had asked about, that's a continuing operation. If there's anything in particular that you want to point out to me that hasn't been picked up yet, just let me know.
Wait a minute. What about the unfilled position? You didn't want to,
I
No.
thought we just discussed that.
You're working on it. That's
that was the employees list? That was not it?
We-
Okay.
We're working
We
on it.
just
Go
got done
on.
with that.
I'm good.
Okay. Are there any particular street signs that we haven't gotten to yet?
I haven't been down Florida Avenue.
Okay, all right. Conditions of the right-of-way and clam truck. The clam truck is ordered. It's supposed to be here in August. Yes. It was ordered several months ago. They had to build it, but it's coming. I'm not sure what you were talking about on conditions of the right-of-way.
You know, just the garbage, I mean, and leaf and debris like that from the houses.
Okay?
David, I noticed that at some times it seemed like the existing clam truck didn't basically get run on an exact sequence. Is that going to be taken care of once we get the new truck also? Because we'll have two.
Once we get the employees straightened out, it will.
Okay, good enough. So it's the employee issue, not the new clam truck yet.
Well, one of the things that threw us back for almost 10 days is we had one of our employees had a head injury.
Okay.
And he actually fell off the back of the truck and damaged that thing. But he's fine. He's fine. He's
Oh,
back to
thank
work.
God for that.
But that did throw us
Okay.
almost 2 weeks behind on the normal schedule. But he's
So we need a new truck and we also need a new employee to have a
Correct.
backup. Okay, great.
correct. Okay, this next one is the separate next agenda item is an analysis of the cost of the Nucor agreement for discussion, and that's something I'm going to ask our Director of Infrastructure, Ronnie Jones, to present a little program on.
Now, David, is this a Nucor agreement or is this the jobs grant?
This is jobs grant.
This is the jobs grant. It's not a Nucor agreement. It's the jobs
Correct.
grant. Okay.
Correct. So you asked us to look at some alternatives, which we did. There are, Ronnie, I'll just let you go ahead and take this.
Okay. What you see on the board in front of you now is the existing alignment that was prepared by Polson Engineering that carries the proposed water main and force main along US 27 and carries it up to Sunpure. Initially, it was going to turn left and go to Lemon Road and go to the county line, but after a further review of the DEO grant after receiving it, and in order to comply with the spirit of the grant, it was recommended that we pull that line back and eliminate it on Lemon altogether, and instead incorporate a lift station at the intersection of Sunpure and at Lemon. So right now, that is the way the project is laid out. We've also been asked to look at a possible alternate route, and I have provided a couple of PDFs for that, if you look at that, Manuel.
Good.
I believe this was brought up earlier tonight. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but
It's upside backwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Second from the last.
okay. So council members, in your packet, you have two separate layouts. You have one titled a 6-inch water main alternate, and the other titled a 4-inch sewer force main alternate. Both of these lines will run parallel along Sunpure and then turn south at the intersection that you see there on your map and head down toward, I believe it was River Green, is that right, David?
Casa del Lago.
Casa del Lago. There is existing a 4-inch force main there at Casa del Lago, but we would have to model from that point all the way back to the wastewater plant to determine if, from a hydraulic standpoint, if it was capable of handling the flows from any new proposed developments on this north end. We don't know now because it's not part of our existing project. We're not sure who's tied into that line, how much volume they've put into it already. We don't know if we would have to incorporate surge tanks to allow for peak flows. So this would be something that would have to be completely modeled before I could give anyone a definitive answer as to whether either one of these scenarios would work for this force main. And again, on the water main, to provide fire suppression, you need a minimum of a 6-inch line. You have a 6-inch we can tie into, but it's fed off of a 4. So while I can give you pressure, you're going to have a volume issue and you're not going to be able to provide fire suppression. So
Well,
I can get potable water there, but that's about all that I can do utilizing this particular route with the infrastructure that we currently have in place. So again, it's not impossible, but it would mean that we would have to model both of these utilities far enough south to verify that the capacity is correct, the volume of water, the pressure, everything works out for these new customers that are going to come online.
Well, Ronnie, what is your, what are your fire flows requirements? Is that it's got to be 2,500 at 20 PSI, would it not be for commercial fire flows?
I don't have that answer right in front of me, Jerry.
Because I don't know you're going to get that out of a 6-inch, but I'm not an engineer.
I know for domestic, you have to maintain a minimum of 20 PSI, but I'm
Right.
not sure what it is for the
Was it-
commercial. I don't have that right in front of me.
Yeah, okay.
That was a topic that was brought up by a previous administration and explored with Julian and Josh at the time, and they deemed that it was definitely not adequate at that time, but I don't know what you'll find.
I did have a quick conversation with Polson about this particular alternate route, and they had a lot of the same hesitancies and that I'm sharing with you now about tying onto it without doing any modeling. And I know we're looking at this for a lot of different reasons. One is to cut cost. 2 is to avoid some of the permit obligations that we're going to get involved with. But I can't tell you if this project would ultimately be cheaper without doing a lot of downstream modeling.
Well, it seemed to me like the starting place would be at the end of the existing line, doing a fire flow there.
Correct.
And
If
it-
you don't have it there, you're not going to have it anywhere.
Possibly, we could look at this as a phase 2 expansion to possibly loop everything. If you look at my cursor right there, to loop everything right here, all the way down here and out, which would encompass the study that Ronnie's talking about doing, if we'd looked at that as a possible phase 2. But I did speak to Bridget Jackson from the DEO today, and since this would be changing the scope of work that we have already agreed to, she said it would be allowable, but it would be quite a lengthy process to go through an amendment to do that. And since it took us quite a while to get the signed agreement, I don't know exactly what she means quite a lengthy process would be. But it could be done through changing the scope of work.
I don't know if county staff that's here, I was under the assumption that fire suppression lines required at least an 8-inch. So if there's 6 right now and then you had to convert to an 8 for new construction, then that would be a problem, wouldn't it?
It's not based on line size. I'm
No?
sorry, Ronnie.
It's just a PSI,
It's
right?
based on performance. It's
Okay.
a certain number of gallons per minute at residual pressure of 20 PSI, because you can't fall below the 20 PSI by law. So, and generally speaking, I mean, residential is anywhere between 500 gallons a minute to 1,000 gallons a minute. Commercial can be anywhere between 2,000 and 2,500 gallons a minute. That's a lot of water to come out of a 6-inch pipe, let alone a 6-inch fed by a 4-inch. Just in my humble, non-engineering opinion.
So the pros would be that it would be less expensive and it would just be dedicated to one particular area rather than up 27. The cons would be
It's not on 27.
that we have to eat the engineering dollars off of the Highway 27 side because the grant won't pay for that if this gets done. And then you're saying that there's time constraints as well. And we know that the steel mill wants to get up and running in September. Is that the deadline?
End of the year.
Like 2020? Okay.
No, this time next year they want to
2019.
be up and running.
But
No,
I had,
no.
for some reason, we haven't even gotten a contract back from them yet. They've had it for over a month, and I don't know what's going on with that, quite frankly.
They want to have the administration building up and running by the end of the year.
Okay.
They would like to be in production of the steel by June of 2020.
But they need the water now so that they can do the construction because they're gonna have people there. I mean, not the clubhouse, the gatehouse, the guardhouse or the admin building. They want the water
Administration.
now for that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, doing that, you eliminate all hope of growth with the line. You don't have anywhere to go from there because you're maxing it out to its absolute brink in the hopes of getting enough there.
It was an option.
Right. I mean, I think we should stick with the original plan. It provides the most growth. Yes, it's expensive, but there's hopes of grants in the back end, and even without it, the project funds itself with the income from that one connection.
But that also begs the question, I know that we have a analysis of the rate of return, but it doesn't take into account the cost of doing that business. All we have is a straight up, this is what we're gonna make in revenue, but you gotta subtract from that all the other costs that the city puts into it. So
Right.
really, the rate of return is not what's been provided. It's not. So it could be twice the amount of years, depending on what that actual rate of return truly is. You know, separate the gross from the net, and then we'll have a good answer. So I think that math computation really needs to be done just for the sense of transparency. But look, I don't have a problem going up 27. Obviously, that's where we intended to go, because that's where the global reach of, economic growth is gonna be and all
Growth
that.
potential, yeah.
So, I don't know if this falls into the category of the conversations that we've been having for the last few days in regards to additional sources of potential income, but I think that if we exhaust every venue that we possibly can in terms of additional funding, that we would be doing the best that we could in good faith. I also want to say that I'm perplexed that this is even less than half of what the project is going to cost in terms of the grant funds that we have. And all along, we've had between city staff, county staff, city council making comments that, we'll cover it. Well, that was under the assumption it was going to be maybe a couple of $100,000. But now we're how much?
2.4 total.
2.4 total, and all we have is $970,000. So, do we have the money to pay that? Probably, but what are we going to sacrifice in the return? Do we have lift stations to repair? Do we have developer agreements where we need to install water and sewer in the next 2 or 3 years to do that? If we don't do those developers will do it, and then they'll send us the bill. There's a lot of extra expenses, I think, that we need to be looking at before we just arbitrarily say, here's a $1.3 million, do the job.
Well, let me just simply say with regard to them sending us the bill.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if they build a lift station with adequate capacity to serve that area, then of course there'd be a reimbursement agreement associated with that.
Yeah.
Or if you build it and with the money that you have, then I believe you can establish a main extension fee for both water and wastewater for that portion of the cost of this line that exceeds the amount that's covered by the grant.
I
throw
mean,
that out
I'm
there.
talking about developer agreements in other areas of town where they have agreements where we did all the engineering and we're gonna do all the installation when they gave us easements, and are all of those completed?
Well,
Those are the developer agreements I'm talking about that are sitting in the back pocket of the city's accounting that, I don't know when those drop dead dates of installation of those utilities are gonna be, that have to be factored in. We know that the CIP has been rubber stamped for the last 3 years, so that has to be looked at as well. We don't know, from what I understand, we've got lift stations that need repair. I don't know how much, hundreds of thousands that's going to be. We just have a lot of expenses. So I think that just in good faith, we need to exhaust every venue that we possibly can. I know that David's been in contact with Tallahassee. I know that I have as well, and then, the same people keep telling us that there's a rural infrastructure grant that kicks in as a gap funding. And then there's also a CDBG that we could go to in regards to, David has the information on the plastics company. So there's a potential of 750 right there. There's a potential from the rural infrastructure grant. If any of those can complement this project to where nobody has to pay for anything, then that's great. But whatever the balance is in the end, then I think that we need to start looking more creatively at helping fund this project, because nobody thought that we would be $1.3 million out of pocket on this one.
I also have some major concerns over that. We're looking at a project that's going to cost more than double what the original estimate is. So it's going to cost us more out of our pocket than the original grant. And we know that a project this big is going to be overrun and so forth. So theoretically, this could cost us $2 million out of pocket.
You have a
And-
15% contingency built into that 2.4.
But, I look at it like this, for the time being, if we want to spend, let's say we spend $2 million out of our pocket, it's basically just going to feed one customer. One customer who's not in our county, who's not in our city, so we will not get any property taxes, we won't get any franchise taxes from the electric. I mean, to me, it looks like Polk County and Frostproof is the one that's making out at our cost. And I agree with you, Marie. I think the fact that we have probably a lot of infrastructure things that need to be fixed on this end, so I think our tax dollars should be used for our city and not some other city. If it was a couple $100,000, I understand it, but I just don't see why we should spend our money to make another city and another county happy, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I know that, we're talking about who made the error, previous administration and some of the workers and so on and so forth. That's fine, but it seemed like the county was okay with all those figures for a while. But I just think that this is getting to be way out of hand. It seems like it grows every time we have a meeting with something. And I'm very concerned that I hate to see, I believe in future growth, but I believe in people paying for that future growth. And I just don't think that our rate of return could take us way more than even 10 years to even break even with. And we have no guarantees that anybody else is going to build here with that or anything else. And to spend money that we need to spend money within our city limits, I think is where our tax dollars should go first and not for another city or another county. And I think we need to think about that seriously.
Well, the only thing that matters is how much revenue that you generate from the project. That's the only thing that matters. And whether that's in direct revenue from who's connecting to it or from future growth. So you got to think of it as an investment. I could care less where it's located. It could be located in West Palm Beach if we could build a line all the way to West Palm Beach. It matters not at all. So if the project will fund itself, which I believe at this point that it would, because we're generating $145,000 per year. Obviously, that doesn't take into account what it costs us to do that business, but we can get those figures. And that's with that one connection. That doesn't take into account anything to do with the plastics company, anything to do with any other companies in that area. So if the funding is worth it coming from the project, it doesn't matter what it costs, it doesn't matter where it's at in any way, shape, or form.
It matters when we get that money,
From rate making.
our return.
Well,
From a rate making standpoint, I would just have to point out that, you really don't make a rate of return. Your rate of return is zero. You are a nonprofit entity, basically. You're seeking not to make a profit. You can make a profit, but you're not supposed to design to make a profit. Nevertheless, I think you still have mechanisms by which you can try and recover these costs with main extension fees that would be paid for by the hydraulic share. The problem with that, of course, is you have to have people connect, and they really do have to connect in order to pay those main extension fees. And that way you become made whole, but you're never going to make a profit off it, really. So.
And
Yeah.
if they do a covenant to annex into the city when the property becomes contiguous, then we get that tax rate off of that property as well. So that's future annexation would be, in my opinion, a definite plus on this.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Avon Park will eventually reach county line. That's the way it's going to expand to. It's going to run into Sebring, and it's going to run into the county line. Whether that happens in 10 years or 100 years, that's what will eventually happen.
Okay, so do you want the taxpayers of today to pay for the taxpayers of the future?
Are they paying a higher rate because of this project?
Who?
Taxpayers.
No, but we'll have less money for our own infrastructure if this project costs $1.5 million or more.
Yeah.
So
If we ran into a shortfall.
What do we tell the taxpayers then, that we can't fix our own water structure lines in our city?
Well, if you let it get to that point, then shame on you, but this wouldn't get it there.
How much money would the alternate route save?
Doesn't know.
Don't know at this point.
I mean, before we make a decision, shouldn't we exhaust every avenue that we got, on doing this and find the answer to that?
If I may, council members, we are at 80% complete on the existing design you have in front of you now. If you choose to direct me to look at the alternate route and to model that, we will stop where we are now and start that process in order to get you the answer that you so desire, which is it a cheaper route or not?
Yeah, but we're about, what, 60%, 70% short on cash to build the other route?
I understand that, but I just want you to really let that sink in, the ramifications of the fact that we're at 80% complete now for design, And this may take several months to model this alternate route to come back to you to say, yes, it's cheaper, or it's the same, or no, it's going to be more expensive. How would you wish me to proceed at that point?
Are we gonna cross the railroad track with it?
You will not, to my knowledge. But again, this
But-
is,
but
we
there
need to
again,
model
there
downstream to
again,
find
who's in a
out.
hurry? Who's in a hurry?
I'm just giving you as an advisory that that is where we are today.
I'm asking the question, if this is not a one-man line for a one-man thing, who's in a hurry? You're saying the growth of Avon Park eventually is going to be on the north end of town?
Because we have an opportunity now.
Well,
We
I
may not have
understand,
another
but what is 8 weeks? He said a couple of months. What is 8 weeks?
Well, it's big in the eyes of the
Oh, you're
person who
talking
wants
back
to-
to one man again. See, you can't have a one-man line. That's
You
what
have
we're
a
talking-
It
person
is
that
not a-
wants to connect to this line.
It is not a one-man line. I spoke with Sunpure
Yeah, okay,
Plastics
okay,
today,
Okay,
and they are very interested in hooking up as well.
okay.
So right now, they would be out of the city limits, which means they pay 25% more for the utility. If they annexed in, they'd be paying less, so our rate of return would actually drop if they ever annexed in. So we know that part there. And I'm just saying anybody in that area, because they're all in the county, but I personally want to exhaust every source that we possibly can before we make any decision on spending any extra money on the city side. So I know that we have deadlines for applications for CDBGs. I know that there are deadlines in terms of infrastructure. I just saw today that the governor is releasing money to be put out for infrastructure jobs. Maybe there's some gap money in there. I think it's time to call everybody that we possibly can to see what we can get our hands on. And if we can get an ED CDBG, that's $750,000 right there. Now, about 80,000 of that will go to the consultant, and it changes the whole dynamics of the grant. But that one is doable. It's due July the 6th.
July
And there's
6th.
there's 2 months to work on that, but that relies entirely on whether or not the plastics company can commit the jobs. So it's $35,000 per job that you would get in money for construction. So we would hope that they would put in 20 to 25. We don't know what were the numbers they gave you of potential jobs? There's
wouldn't.
no commitment,
He
right?
wouldn't commit.
So they would have to make a commitment on the number of jobs to see how much money we would get. And there's also the potential of, RPAC funding from the county. And, in the past, the county has used funding from RPAC for the sheriff's building, so it is usable for infrastructure dollars. I'm looking at Ben because I'm just looking at Ben. But if that's the case, there's another little area there that we could look at, and I think then the numbers become more doable. So I just want to exhaust every venue we can. If we've got maybe a month and a half, let's do it. And, I know that this project is considered, what was the key phrase? A high visibility, high something project. And I think that we should take advantage of that moniker and, give that back to the state and say, okay, this is a high visibility project that, went through a lot of hoops and things. I also want to say that, it's no fault of the steel mill that they did what they did. They were offered this. They didn't come and say, hey, we want a grant and we want this for nothing. Right. No, they said, okay, we're going to do this. And then they were approached and said, okay, the city can fork this out. But like I said, nobody in the past had any authority to tie the city to anything. And that's the unfortunate thing, and that's why we are where we are right now. So,
Let me ask you this, Maria. If there is no other grants, there is no other funding source, would you fund it?
I would like to see whether or not the developers in that area would be willing to pitch in a portion.
If no one else is willing to put in a dime, would you do it?
Isn't that interesting if no one did it? I wouldn't want to do the whole thing, no.
Why not?
Because I don't think it's fair to our local taxpayers.
Never mind the revenue from it?
Well, the way I see it, it'll be maybe 20 years before any money comes back to the city.
The building will be there 40 to 50.
Well, but we don't know for sure that anyone else is going to move in. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns there.
Yeah,
and we don't
just
know.
Like all the other investments that we made, how many water systems did we buy? How many times have we upgraded our plants? I mean.
And that's the other question. I don't know what the capacity is in the next 20 years. We're talking about all this development there. At some point, we're going to have to reinvest $1 million. What I just want to know that we can exhaust all venues. Let's cross that bridge when we get it. I think we have a couple of months to discuss that.
Why on earth you would stop progress to look at other sources?
We're not stopping it. We're finding out whether or not there's other sources.
Are you stopping progress to look for other sources?
I haven't been given any direction to do that,
No,
no.
I'm doing that.
Engineering is not complete. Is engineering complete?
80%.
Okay, so we still have 20% of the engineering to get completed before we can talk to anybody. You don't know whether or not the state can fast track this. They say it's a high visibility project.
As
so-
long as progress is not being stopped,
I don't see
have
how
a
it would
problem
be.
with it. Look, you would be foolish not to look at every avenue possible for funding, but to stop the progress on the project. I mean, you have to ask yourself the question now of, if there is no other funding sources, will you do it? Because if the answer is no,
Well, I'm pretty confident that there are other funding sources, and based on that, I would.
but that's not the question
Well,
that's posed.
but,
That-
you know,
that's what
no,
you
but
have-
it is, you're giving me it's a hypothetical right now, and I would really rather rely on making sure that we dot all of our little i's and cross our t's and get what we can in terms of conversations with others, because $750,000 is a big amount of money. You know, and I think that if we could get any other grant for this project, that we should exhaust every aspect that we can to get there.
Nobody disagrees
We're not
with you.
stopping progress right now. We're just having a conversation about potential other sources of funding.
Let me,
Let me point this out to you. This is in the scope of work for the DEO grant. Grantee's responsibilities, number 2, subsection 3, work on the project shall commence on or before September 30th, 2019. Now, this is the agreement that Bridget said could be
Modified.
amended. So I don't know if that effective date in there is going to matter in the grand scheme of things or not, but you need to be aware that work has to be started.
Right.
September 30th.
So, and we still have to go to bid for construction. We're not done with the engineering yet, and we've got maybe 2 months to figure out whether or not we have the money. If we fast track it and the money comes through from a grant, then we would just apply, submit, and, there's desktop monitoring, there's all kinds of requirements with CDBGs. But $750,000 is a lot of money just to say, you know what, let's just forget it because we're on a time crunch of 2 months. I think that we can see where we fall in 2 months. I think it's totally doable. Otherwise, possibly why not fund 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3? Have, other entities come in and pay for a portion of it. It's not unheard of for a developer to do that. Which begs the question, prior to the county approaching the steel mill, what was the steel mill going to do? Were they expecting us to build it all along, or were they going to do it on their own, or were they going to?
They can build their old plant.
Right.
It's just not as attractive of an option.
Right.
It also doesn't help the city.
No, and
And
I
also-
get that, but I just think that we should look at every aspect first, at least to satisfy our own knowledge that nothing else could be done. And you know what? I can change my mind.
I agree with Councilwoman Sutherland. Also, I guess another, besides looking at other grant money, we still don't have any bids on the project. We don't even know what.
No, I mean, the engineering's not done.
I know, but even then, we don't know what the project's gonna cost us after the engineering's done.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Drew Wilcox, Nucor Steel. We did look at other options early on. We had 2 or 3, maybe 4 different options on the table. One of those being the option we went with. And I just want to, I know there's been changes and all kinds of stuff that has happened. And I certainly don't have any kind of contract or anything written in blood. But this city committed to us almost a year ago that's how we were going to get our water and that's how our sewer would be taken care of. And at that point, we quit looking at any other options because we had that commitment. Any further delays or changes or things is absolutely going to stop us from hiring local people and completing this project. So I just want to make sure y'all take that into account. We quit looking at any other options almost a year ago when the city committed to this for us.
I think it's a very sour pill to swallow that we are subject to the mistakes of prior administrations, and that just infuriates me because the proper diligence wasn't done on our part, not on yours. And I just want to reiterate that. I promised you when I spoke to you on the phone the other day that I would do everything at least in my power to do as much in good faith as possibly, and I'm hoping that the council's doing the same thing. I would like to see what other things are out there, only because it's the most prudent thing to do. It's no different than you seeking assistance and getting the water lines. We're doing the same thing. This is a lot higher than expected. When I spoke to you, I think it was 600,000 at the time. Now it's double that. So, I have no doubt that the project will go through. But let's see what else is out there before we, say, okay, let's just go ahead and write a check for $1.3 million.
the longer this project gets delayed is the longer it's going to be before we can hire people, because we won't have anywhere to put them. We have to have a locker room and administration building with water and sewer before we can bring a bunch of people in. And we have to bring them in to be able to start training and do what we need to do to finish this project and operate our business. And like I said, we had the commitment from the city almost a year ago.
Did you anticipate that the line would be free, that these water and sewer lines were going to be free?
Or
and
100%
all the
grant
presumptions?
paid?
It's been my experience that when you get utilities, you never pay for it. You pay your bill every month, correct?
No, I've never heard of that, actually.
So homeowners
Only-
pay to get stuff run to their home?
Yeah, that's what's paid for when they build their houses. When the houses are being built, the developer pays for the cost of the
We
lines.
were told that there was a grant to pay for the line. We've never
So
been
were we.
approached to give any other funds.
But I'm just throwing out there, the grant obviously doesn't cover it. Would you be willing to pay your hydraulic share, gallonage-wise
I'm not
of the
prepared to
additional?
discuss that tonight, but we'll certainly pay our bill every month, which is a nice amount of money for the city. I guarantee you we'll pay our bill.
Drew, in the time between now and the letting of the project, which we still have to go through procurement for the contractor to do the actual work, we have about a 2-month time frame. Is that correct? That will give us enough time to get with the state and see where we would fall within any funding category, which is the time frame that's the bottom that we are willing to have, because we want to get this done as well. So all I'm saying tonight is, before we commit any city dollars, I want us to exhaust what's up there and then cross that bridge when we get there. But they know that we
were
only.
originally told that we would have water and sewer by September, and now that's been pushed off closer to November. And, another 2-month delay. I'm not sure how long it takes to actually put the line in. Ronnie will probably know, but November seems pretty tight to me sitting here tonight, and we're just simply not going to be able to bring people on until we have it.
Well, we're not going to be able to make any commitments till we have a contract, and we still haven't gotten the contract back, and you guys have had it for quite some time now.
You committed a year ago that we were going to put this
Well,
line
they're
in.
saying you haven't signed your contract to us. So that's not a commitment yet.
So, Corey Lane with Nucor. The contract, just last week, we've got diagrams that were needed for the contract to move forward. So we are working on the contract and plan to get that back to you shortly. Our attorney's reviewing it, but we were waiting on the final plan, which was talked about earlier, which changed from running up Lemon to just running to Sunpure. And we needed to understand that in order to understand all the deeds and different things that are part of that contract. So we're not sitting on it. We just met with Ronnie and David last week and got that information.
And whatever we start looking for in terms of additional funding fits within the scope of when you want to start, from what you've discussed with the city manager. I'm looking at 2 months talks with the state to see if they can spin fast and mobilize fast and approve us as a fast track. If that's the case, they said 2 months. So it doesn't affect at all the process of us getting where you want to be.
That's great. Not affecting it at all is awesome.
At
for
least
me.
from the grant perspective. I don't know the ins and outs of the contracting or anything. I mean, if you're saying it's November, but we thought it was September, I thought it was September all along.
To start.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was September to start, and
Okay.
over the past couple of months, I guess that's changed from what I understand. It's gotten
That's
pushed
still
back.
in the agreement.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? So let's be clear. Have you hired anybody here locally at all with the
Yes.
idea that they would be future trained
Yes,
from Avon Park?
yes, and at Highlands County, we've already done a few in some of the more technical type roles, maintenance, but the big hiring won't happen until later this year. We
Well,
just last week had a job fair here in Avon Park, and I think we had about 150 people that were there and interested in signing up to get in the process, go through the process of working with us.
Any other questions for them?
No.
Nope.
We appreciate it, guys.
David, there's a lot of math that needs to be done between now and then as well in regards to the dollars that we have. You know, it was always, it's $6 million that's sitting in that utility fund, am I correct?
Yes.
And that's liquid cash.
No, you have a list in front of you that I put there tonight. It's an email from Ricky Helms, and let me explain this to you real quick. This says as of September 30th, 2017. We're waiting on the 2018 audit right now. They're in the process of doing that, so these figures are a little off. But the general fund had a surplus of 3.4. The infrastructure fund was 2.4. Water and sewer fund was 6.3. Solid waste was 1.5. There is more money in there that's allocated to the pension funds, but I left that out of this. You can't touch that. But yes, there are funds there. I do not know what has been spent in the 2017-2018 fiscal year. I don't know what's come into it revenue-wise or what's spent from that that went out. But Ricky seems to think that your figures are going to be pretty close to that, but probably more.
Because nothing was done. There's been no
Nothing was
infrastructure
spent.
jobs for the last year.
Correct.
Okay.
So, but we would be tackling the water and sewer fund for this project, not any of the other ones.
Right.
Correct.
Conley, name and address, please.
Conley Yana, 900 County Road 17A, Avon Park, Florida. Nucor came to Yana Concrete, and they wanted to do business with a local community business. They chose Yana Concrete. Yana Concrete didn't choose them, they chose us. They set a schedule, what they wanted to do, and Yana Concrete said they would do it. We have already hired 8 employees right now, today. We have 8 more employees than what we had. We are looking at doubling that to 16 employees just because of Nucor in Avon Park. We have purchased ready-mix trucks. We're going to put another additional 8 trucks on the road, which Hicks Oil is going to gain probably, the fuel consumption of the trucks being used right here in Highlands County. And I don't understand why we're discussing this, because this is a win for the Highlands County people, the city of Avon Park, and it needs to be done, and it needs to be done in a timely manner, because they have put a lot of money in this community, whether you know it or not. Drive around, see some of their signs, see what they've done. They're here for the long haul, not a short term. Do you think they're going to spend that kind of money to walk away?
240-something million.
That's not, they're here to stay. They have open arms. Let's open our arms and do what we can to welcome into our community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Benjamin Dunn for Highlands County. Some of what you just heard today, I also want to echo a little bit. I keep hearing the investment the city's going to have to make and the residents, but you also have to look at the impact that not just Nucor, but you also have the Sunpure Holdings facility that they can't even go into full operation right now because they need fire suppression. They've been waiting for these lines, and they were told the same thing. But the other aspect is, when you put that infrastructure in, if you don't think other businesses are going to follow, you just heard what Yana Concrete just said. Well, there's going to be other businesses that are going to want to support Nucor and other industry that's going to come in, and they won't come in unless the infrastructure's in place. Highlands County, and then specifically in this part, you're primed for a lot of growth in the short to mid-term. You have a state facility, which is a strategic intermodal system road, and in the state, that's a regional road that moves freight. And you look where it's located, right by all these properties. You don't have any traffic and currency issues. You just need infrastructure. And if you put it in, it will follow, and it will come, and it will provide more jobs for the folks of City of Avon Park. So there is a benefit for putting this investment in. It's not just return on utilities. It's also the job growth that your local residents will now be able to find other employment options with good salaries. So there's other benefits to this other than just we got to put this initial investment in. If you look at it from a business perspective, people put investments in to their business in hopes the return comes back. Well, that's what you're doing here. Other jurisdictions I've worked for, we've put hundreds of millions of dollars in road improvements, into virgin land that was, over in Polk County, I-4 and 27, hundreds of millions of dollars of road and utility improvements into there, into that area, when there's a lot of vacant land. Go look at it now. You got the Walmart e-commerce campus that's in there. It's a 2 million square foot facility, a FedEx facility. You have enormous growth that's going out there. It's because the infrastructure was put in place. Sometimes we got to make the investment to get the return, and the return will be growth, positive growth, and jobs, which benefits Highlands County, the city of Avon Park, Sebring, Lake Placid. Folks are going to come and live here. We've already seen people. Nucor has already had individuals that have bought houses here. Other people are going to come and build here. We've had many inquiries in the county. Land use changes have already occurred in this area through the county and property. We've had other folks already come and talk to us about things that they want to do out there. So the word's out on the street. Now we just need to bring it to fruition so we can get this thing moving. So.
Do you see a problem with us looking for alternative sources of funding for the next 2 months?
I don't see, just like in any business, I would always look for alternative funding, but you can't stop the progress. This needs to occur on the time frame in which it needs to occur at, because there's also, people are watching. If you don't think people are watching this, you're fooling yourselves. People want to see what's happening here. Is Avon Park, is Highlands County, are they good to do business with? And the answer we want is yes, they're good to do business with. So we need to get there. So people want to come here and locate their business, because you don't think across that county line, the Polk County is going to try to lure business over here and take it from here? Because there's already a county land use sign amendment on the property directly across this county line that's going to the county commission over there. People are lining up. You all have the opportunity to be the ones that can take advantage of this and grab that growth before your adjacent county does. And it's all going to be based on what people are seeing, what's happening, what's going on, and the investment that's being made into supporting it.
And like I said earlier, all I want is to see if we can get other money for this. It's not going to stop any bit of the progress. I know that the majority of the council is going to say yes to this, so I may have a moot, request of city staff. It may be totally useless for me to ask it, because probably the council's already made up his mind. I'm halfway there. But I just want to make sure that we have exhausted every alternative source of funding that we possibly can. It's going to be a little bit of sweat on our side to do it, but we'll suck it up and do it if we have to.
I feel more comfortable if you said you were 75% there.
Probably so. But nonetheless, it convinced me. I'm convinced that I know it is a good project to do. That's no doubt. I just want to make sure that we've done everything we can ahead of that, because the $750 that we would make off of CDBG can go to that, and then whatever we don't spend on it can go towards improving our own infrastructure. And hiring the people that we need for that.
Amen. I'm for you.
So, that's all we're doing. We're not stopping progress. I said, if we can fast track whatever potential grants that we can get through the state, because they're sounding like they want to do it, despite everyone being on vacation right now. The ones that I spoke to that are on vacation from Tallahassee are all like, yeah, we can do this. This is a high visible job. It has a lot of state recognition to it. So I don't want to throw that away. But I think it would be good for the city to at least show that we did the best we could to find out if there were alternative sources of funding. The county would do the same thing.
And I don't disagree. I just think folks should leave this meeting with a comfort level. If I was Sun Pure Holdings and I was Nucor, I don't know how comfortable I'd be right now. So exploring options, totally understand. Other funding sources, totally get it. But at some point, I think the answer needs to be, are we going to get it done? And that's
you
the
want
question.
A comfort level, but then here's the thing. If you walk out with a comfort level, then we don't have to go look for other grants.
No,
They're not controlling us looking for more grants. We
no,
do that.
I know we are, but they want a comfort. That's what I'm saying. If you
And
want
we
a
should
comfort
provide that
level,
to 'em.
Well, okay, if you want a comfort level, let's get the comfort level, but I still want to pursue other sources of
And I will
funding.
personally work with you in exploring other grants, if that's what it takes. I have no problem doing that. Let's just get it done.
Work with me on that, Ben.
Absolutely.
Work with me on that.
And Dave, since you've come on board, I called you the first week you're on board,
Yes,
saying
you
what
did.
we can do to help you.
Yes, you did.
We're committed to that.
Yep.
And we're committed to making Avon Park, a prime area for growth.
What we need to make sure of is that we're not delaying anything that
No.
we're currently doing.
No.
Because if you're delaying it, then that's going to change bid specs, and that's going to push things backwards where construction doesn't start when it's supposed to do. So as long as we're not delaying, if we're continuing to move forward with this while looking for other resources, I'm with you. We'll absolutely do that. Absolutely.
Okay.
We owe that to our citizens. We do.
Thank you very much.
Jim.
Thank you. Jim Brooks. I heard you're 80% done on your plans currently to go down 27. You can't get bids. I guess you're not going to go out for contract. You can get an estimate, but you can't get a bid until you finish the plans, correct?
Correct.
And you're planning on bidding it out. I'm sure the city's not planning on doing the work themselves.
That is correct.
All right, you've got to get a permit to cross under Atlantic Coastline or Seaboard Coastline Railroad.
CSX, correct.
CSX. And you're not going to be able to do that until you have your plans finished, I assume, correct? If you've gotten a permit from the railroad or been a part of trying to get anything from the railroad, you know that it doesn't happen overnight. Now, I know CSX has said they will fast track this. What that means, I have no idea.
They have said that.
But there's a lot of things that are pending on getting those plans finished. So you've got an accurate cost analysis. You can go to bid. You're not going to know until you go to bid what a contractor is going to bid to complete the work. This alternate route that you're talking about is relying on a lift station that served Casa de Laga and a few residences in River Green's golf course area. It's not going to be big enough. The water line, like he said, is a 6-inch tied to an 8-inch. They need 12 inches up there to have the volume to suppress fires. They're spending $250 million on a plant. I don't know if you've been up there recently, but they've cleared over 250 acres. They're going to build a plant here that's going to use more concrete than what Yana Concrete and all of their 4 plants, Avon Park, Sebring, Lake Placid, Zoffo, have used so far this year. It's a huge project, and they're promising to hire people. They're going to hire people. If you've done any research on Nucor, they are a top-notch company. We are very fortunate. It's not in Highlands County, it's in Polk County. Their access is going to be in Highlands County. There's going to have to be upgrades to Sunpure Road, probably to 27. Some of that they're going to have to pay for as part of their location here. But
Are you saying that someone else is paying for that county road to get rehabbed?
I have no idea how that's going to work. Normally, the developer has to pay for the upgrades to the road. Since the developer's in Polk County, but he's accessing it in Highlands County, Gator, our county engineer sitting back here, I mean, doesn't normally the developer, unless he has some agreement with the county, the developer has to make those road improvements. When I built Reflections on Silver Lake out there, I had to pay for the turn lanes, the decel lanes, had to pay to put the street light in or the traffic signal. You know,
You as the developer had to pay for all of that. The county didn't do that for you.
well, the county ended up helping with the traffic light.
Yeah.
And the college ended up helping with that.
You said something about fire suppression. Are they going to use this water for fire suppression?
Well, sure they're going to use it for fire suppression.
I'm under the impression that this is going to be for the office.
No, he's
For
the-
200, this is not going to be for fire suppression. Am I correct or incorrect? I don't know. I'm asking you the question. When they got two Caterpillar wells sitting there, I didn't know that this line was going to be for that. I don't know.
Fire suppression just for the office,
Okay, just for the office.
not for the mill.
Just for the office.
Correct.
Okay.
But for the plastics recycling company, they absolutely need fire suppression
Okay.
open.
Plastics recycling company cannot open until they
And
get-
anyone else moving there
Gotcha.
Right.
or building.
Got
They've
it.
been given 2 years to get that taken care of.
Got you.
So anyway, I'm just saying, let's move forward.
Commissioner Brooks, I have a question.
A CDBG grant will take a year or more.
What I've been told is the deadline for
Okay.
application is July. So if that takes longer than that, would the county be willing to partner with the city in helping offset the expense of the utility lines?
I can't speak for the county. I can speak for myself. I'd be willing to help, but I'm only one of 5.
So there's
Commissioner
another
Brooks,
source right there.
Would you go back to the county commission and ask them if they would do that? Because I've heard several people say over the time that this is also going to benefit the county. So, you know, if we need help, will the county help us?
I'll answer this question.
Okay, please.
If the request from this council is for us to go back and have an item onto the board and talk to them about assisting in this, I can craft the agenda item. I'll get with the county administrator and we can have a board discussion regarding that.
Okay.
And we can go from there.
Great, that sounds good.
But I think we need to know what we're being asked to help with.
I need to be clear direction on what this council is asking for.
Which is why we have to finalize conversations in Tallahassee to see what they will be able to do in a fast track. You know, the fiscal year for CDBGs ends on or not the fiscal year, but the rollout of those funds ends, deadline for application is July the 6th.
This cycle.
It takes 2 months to apply for one, but the people I've spoken to, they said that they would fast track what they could.
I think there can only be one open CDBG.
Only if it's an ED CDBG, you can have as many as you want when you have another one. So we have a housing right now, this would fit. We are totally allowed to do an ED.
Anyway, we're willing to do anything we can to help you. I can't speak for the county.
And that's all we're looking for, you know, it's just
And we have
exhausting every possible
we have
venue we
that.
can.
These people, I know where they're coming from. They're wanting to start building a plant. They've already invested a huge amount of money. And the uncertainty is killing them.
I have a question. I think my question is for our staff here. You said that.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, sir. Ronnie, you said that the engineer is 80% completed?
That's
The
correct.
design, when will the other 20% be completed?
At this point, they are waiting to basically get direction as to whether or not they need to proceed further in finalizing this design so that we can submit to state agencies and to CSX in order to start that permitting process, address any red line comments that they may have, and that will then get incorporated into the final plans.
Okay.
So right now, they're sitting on go, waiting to find out.
And they can't do anything until they get the okay from this council?
Correct.
Which is coming up on June 24th,
Right.
right?
It will be June 24th, right?
And by then, we should have some
Okay.
commitments from the state.
My next question is, I guess it's to the Nucor people. The signed contract, will you have that back to us, by June 24th or shortly after that?
I also have a question regarding that as well, because they did drop a little bit of a bomb on us at one of the meetings and said that they were very happy to connect to us and have us run the line, but they didn't want to stay connected to us. They didn't want to promise to stay connected to us more than a short amount of time. So we still have to deal with the issue of how long it's going to be. They said they would. I think they're willing to commit to the period of time the grant requires that they stay connected, which is only 10 years, right?
10 years.
Yeah.
Now,
So, but
can I
weren't.
answer the question and jump in on that? So the first question was, when would we have the agreement back?
Yes.
Just want to clarify, and maybe it's a question, but the agreement has nothing to do with this project. It has
I
to do with
understand that.
our,
Yeah, I
so we have time
understand
to work on that without impacting this project. We've been in communication with our attorneys. We had to meet with Ronnie and David last week to understand part of the agreement. Jerry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is an easement and, deed of that building that's going to be on our property. We had no idea where it was going to be yet or what it was going to be. So we have the diagram now. So our attorney needed that in order to continue to work on it. And we're working on that.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with this timeline. And then as far as what we said in regard to the termination, we never picked a length of time. It was just open-ended
No, I
in the
understand.
contract, and we were perfectly willing to hear from you
No,
what you would propose. So to
Well-
say that it had to be just the length of the grant, we did not say that.
No, I know that.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to imply that you did. I just simply said that that was the best we were going to get. We mentioned that it had to be at least 10 years.
Yeah.
But
Which I understand.
Generally speaking, these agreements are perpetual. You agree to connect and you stay connected. That way we can rely on the revenues for a long period of time. But if you guys are going to, and I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm waiting on the agreement. what did you all put in there? Do you know how long it is now that's in the agreement?
No, as far as the time frame, we said in that last meeting that I attended, we were all at, we said we were willing to talk about it, and there was a city council meeting after
Okay.
that. You threw out a range of 12 to 30 years. I thought we were waiting on you to, or the city to kind of come up with a number that you were comfortable with, and we're open to talking about that.
To me, the longer they're in it, the more I'm willing to pay.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, so I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what
mean-
that period is, unless somebody
Right,
wants to
so-
try and, are you waiting for a motion from the commission to say what period of time they'd be willing to accept, or?
We
I
could
mean-
propose something back in the contract if you want. I just thought when we had that meeting, it was left open-ended, and you guys were taking that
Okay.
to discuss.
Fair
that's
enough.
all.
We'll just leave it at that. If the commission, the council will consider how long, you want to have them commit to. When the agreement comes back from them, of course, we're going to go back and forth a couple times. That's why I wanted this to move along quicker than it is. We'll submit something back when you approve the changes that I put in to their attorney's changes.
So the grant, though, has an assurance in it that in order to receive the funding, they have to create the jobs in so much time, right?
Well, I
10
think
years.
there's
10 years?
10 years for 250.
Okay, and our rate of return expects us
150.
to get something in the 15-year range in order for us to get our rate of return if we were to pay $1.3 million ourselves.
I don't know what.
I
the
mean, I
time
just
frame
did a
is.
mini calculation here, so it would
What are you
take us
getting at?
15 years to get to that. So that's assuming, I'm talking about what you guys are going to be discussing with the city attorney. Maybe I'm getting too much into the, hairy parts of the
I think I can
contract.
help move this along a little bit. We consider ourselves to be good businessmen, and that's why our company's grown and been able to do what we've done over the last several years. It would be a terrible business move to get this connected and not stay connected for a very, very long time. It would also not be a very good business move to say that we would never look at other options. And I think the original language said something like that. So we're certainly willing to commit to a long period of time if that can help give you any more comfort.
Would you be open to 30 years?
Yes.
I believe Eric mentioned to us one time that of all the facilities you have nationwide, that you don't have any that have
That's
your own
correct.
wastewater treatment plant.
That's correct, David.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
They-
We're not
that's-
in that
that's
kind of
not-
business.
That's not the business you're in, exactly.
Right. Not to mention the permit process and the cost to do so are quite
Correct.
lengthy and very expensive.
And just time, everything. You have to hire more people, the whole thing.
Right.
So you put that 30 years in the contract we're talking about?
A minimum of 30.
Minimum.
Let it roll
Okay.
over.
I think that's a good response. Thank you.
Does that help?
That helps a
Yes,
lot.
very much.
And we're not going anywhere.
Okay.
I started at Nucor Steel in Jewett, Texas. It was constructed in 1974. We just put about another $150 million in that plant, just for your reference.
So when are you going to retire?
Well, I got 27 years. I'm still pretty young, though. I started young.
I think you got at least 10 more.
At least 10 more.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I got a lot longer.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, we're good.
Thank
you.
Okay, so just to be clear, progress is not being stopped. Anna Marie wants to say something? Yes. What do you got?
Anna Marie Feeney, 234 East Camphor Street, Avon Park. A few years ago, most of you were there, we held a town hall meeting to find out how we could bring progress to Avon Park. And for those of you who weren't there, when I got up to speak, I said we need industry in Avon Park. Industry that's going to keep our young people from having to seek employment, full-time employment, in other counties and other cities. It is a darn shame when our young people work 80 hours a week during the season and then can't put food on their families' tables during the summer. We need industry, we need full-time employment. I've said that all along. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but since the rumor, just the rumor, of Nucor and the plastic factory started, there are no vacant lots that don't have a sold sign on them anywhere in Avon Park on 27. They're all being snatched up. On 64, out near the airport, it's starting to happen. Just on the rumor and the talk, and we're going to do this, and this new council, things are changing. I want to continue us to keep moving forward. I know that financially, I would be doing the same thing you're talking about. I'd be trying to find ways to just fill that gap. But remember, we're not going to be here forever. And the kids who are here now, I'd like to see them living here like we did, raising their children here like we did. Eventually, maybe have some sort of attraction where they don't have to go to Orlando to have fun with their kids. All that starts now. And yeah, it's in the future. A lot of it's in the future. But it has to start now. We have this opportunity. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just talking as a citizen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to make one more comment, and I'll be done.
Go ahead.
I can tell you, when I moved here almost 15 years ago and decided to get involved and see what's going on with the city of Avon Park, small town, everybody I seemed like I talked to said, City of Avon Park does not want to grow. Everybody who's involved with the council or anybody important business, they don't want to see Avon Park grow. And that's one reason why I got involved with being involved with City of Avon Park from different boards as well as getting on city council. I can tell you one thing right now, I am for 100% growth for this city. I am pro-growth, and I look forward to see that. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let me read you an email that I just got from Corbett Allday. Attached program summary of the ED-CDBG program for your use in educating the council and public. The announced due date for 2018 funds this cycle is July 6th. I don't see getting 2 public hearings done by that deadline, but attached is a sample ad you can edit to the city for a first public hearing if you want to try. The ad must appear in a local paper once, not more than 30 days before the hearing, not less than 5 days before the hearing, not including the day of the meeting. So he's telling us what we need to be doing, but telling us this is going to be
Pushing it.
It's going to be pushing it.
Right.
It has to appear 30 days before the hearing?
Yes,
Before the first hearing?
before the first hearing. Not more than 30 days before the hearing and not less than 5 days before the hearing, not including the day of the meeting.
Already.
It's too late now.
It's too late already.
But in
But-
talking to the CDBG people up in Tallahassee, go on, David.
Let me finish. He said you may also be served in asking Patrick
Mhm.
if FDEO would consider extending the deadline for the 2018 ED-CDBG applications until the 2019 cycle is noticed, which might give you another month or so to apply.
And Patrick is acting diligently on behalf of the city of Avon Park. He's represented Avon Park in the past prior to our current CDB, anyway, you haven't met our current CDBG rep from the state, but Patrick's been with the state for almost 30 years. He's the guru, and I spoke directly to him, and he's the one that said this is a high visibility project, that they could probably fast track it, if they talk to the right people up at the state, because they have money left over from from their pot of money that they'd really rather not roll over into the next one. They'd like to tie it down.
Okay.
So, it's actually good news.
Yep.
Well, if they can extend it, obviously, we will call special meetings as needed to get it done.
Sure.
So, don't have a problem there. Awesome. Well, progress is not stopping. Progress is moving forward just as fast as we can. We're going to look at every other avenue to get some funding, but rest assured we're doing everything we can do to go forward with it, and it's not stopping or being held down at any rate right now.
And we're not doing an alternative.
Yes. I
It's
agree
not
with that.
feasible.
That's
The
too late.
alternative option that was studied by our engineer.
Yeah.
I would say stick with the most growth potential, which is.
I agree with David. That could be phase 2 sometime down the line.
Okay.
Yep.
A
Good.
loop would make a lot of sense to
Yep.
loop it.
Okay. All right. Anything else on item number 14?
I just want to thank Ronnie, David, and Manuel as well, because I know that he kind of sits there silently and doesn't say much and acts like like he's not being talked to, but thank you. I know that's a lot of legwork. I understand you worked on the weekend to pull some numbers together and stuff, so you sense the same urgency that I have, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. I agree, especially because it seems like we're always dealing with issues from the past. They come up almost every single meeting.
I think this is the last
Yeah,
one.
let's hope so.
You had to say it.
This is the last
Yes.
one.
You had to say it.
Make sure that's in the minutes, Manuel.
All right.
Thank you.
But nothing else, move on to item number 15. Councilmember Sutherland, we have the CRA potential applicant list.
I'd like to ask 2 questions on that before you start, if you
Go
mind.
ahead.
I'd like to know, 1, who made up that list, and 2, why Gerald Snell's name was left off.
Well, that was mine, so.
Okay, you want to
You
answer
may-
that?
I had sent David an email on Sunday letting him know that there was some concerns on this. I think these were the most recent people. I'll let David explain it. He knows that there are people
I
missing.
put the list together.
Okay.
His name was not left off. That's not correct.
Okay.
What is correct is that the council and the city administration has been proceeding for months now with the clear assumption that the 3 current chairs, Galen Thomas, Gerald Snell, and Dr. Danzy, will continue when in their roles. So when I got the message from Councilmember Sutherland, it was interpreted as who are the new individuals who express interest. And we put together the list and provided it to her. Nobody was left off. That's not a correct statement to make.
Well, please explain. I didn't quite hear you. What did you say about the 3 chairmen?
They're already on it.
They're already
Right.
on it.
Yes.
Okay,
They were
that I did-
operating under the assumption that they were going to be on it.
Okay, so then how many more of this list are we looking for, or this the complete additional list?
This list came about as a part of an outreach to the community. We connected with George Kairos at the Chamber to get a message out. And these are the folks who responded to that message. Do you know, have you recommended anybody?
I recognize most of the
No,
people.
have you recommended anybody to us?
Have I recommended
Yes.
anybody to you? Over the years, yes. Well, recently,
But not
no.
recently, though, okay. So that's what we've got so far. Nobody was left off.
Okay, thanks for that. So have we ever decided how many people we're going to have on that?
7.
And so you'll know, the second one on there is not Tony, that's Tanya. That
Yeah,
was a-
okay.
That was a
That's what I
misprint on
thought.
our part.
Tanya Marshall's on the fire pension board?
She is on the fire pension board, so that would need a decision from Jerry as to whether or not she could serve on both.
Dual office holding.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, well, on the advisory board, it's, I don't believe it'll be a problem. I'll have to check that. But dual office holding is obviously a question here. Because the CRA board would obviously be a office, but I don't believe that the advisory board would be. The pension board clearly is a office as well. So if in fact they were allowed to be on the CRA advisory board, they would not be able to convert to the full CRA board in the event that you were allowed to do that as a result of the Attorney General's opinion that I've asked for.
I personally feel that if it does become autonomous, I don't want to be taking people off because of dual office holding and then putting another one on. And just start out with a valid board from the get-go. I looked up at some of these to see whether or not they were residents inside any of the respective CRA districts, and I couldn't find, some of them aren't even listed on the property appraiser's website, I presume because they're sheriff deputies or a retired sheriff. So I couldn't tell if they, met the criteria to sit on an advisory, on an advisory or regular board. So that info is not here. I know Ms. 7G owns property on Main Street. I don't know Ms. Mercure. I looked her name up on a property appraiser, and I couldn't see if she lived or worked or leased or...
She lives in Avon Park, and she works for Gamez Citrus.
And they're not in the CRA, are they? And does she live in the CRA?
The other element behind this, and I'll have to ask the city attorney to confirm, the statute that we looked at doesn't specify that it had to...
Yes, Attorney General's opinion with regard,
Yeah.
several actually, with regard to the types of people that can serve on the board and
My
what
understanding the
kind of
statute says,
relationship they
yeah.
have to have to the CRA.
My understanding the statute says they have to live it within the boundary of the municipality, not necessarily the district.
I have to look at those AGOs. I know they're out there, but that is not what I've been concentrating on.
Okay. So, and the other element here is that you asked,
Yeah, I know
this is
what you're
just a list of folks who approached. This wasn't a recommendation who to sit on the board, nor were they vetted. This was just a list of the folks who approached the city in response To our,
Yeah.
Right,
to
and
our
we're just discussing
invitation.
those but we have in the past had where you had to be certain criteria in order to sit on any one of these respective boards. I mean, I wouldn't want someone from all South Side people sitting on the airport because they don't know about airplanes unless they have airplanes, right? So the whole goal was to have individuals from those respective boundaried areas of the CRA to serve on this board because they would represent that part of the city.
Right.
So, you know, whether or not there's a statute that says that they could be anybody to serve on any part of it, I still think that the council should have the prerogative to select based on the district that they come from, like it has been in the past.
Question. When is this going to even be an option to
What do you
vote?
mean?
We haven't even
No, I mean, what this does
passed
is
any
it.
ordinance, we haven't passed
No,
anything.
I know, but here's the thing, we don't have an autonomous board yet, but yet we're not having any meetings. The advisory boards, I know some of the individuals on these respective boards that have not been meeting are itching to work on projects.
I understand, but how does this help us move that forward?
Just so that you know what the list is. I mean, if we already know that the 3 chairs are likely going to end up being on there already, then we need to start deciding, are we going to select individuals based off of their respective district, like we have in the past? If they are, we know they need to be vetted from this list.
Wouldn't they just have to live inside of one of the CRAs?
Live, work, own property, or sit on a board
Right.
that's within each respective district. And if there's going to be
But
two.
it can't be each respective because it just has to be in one of the.
No, because they're
No.
non-contiguous. Each district is
Well,
non-contiguous.
This serves
don't know.
all. This is not,
Yeah.
it's not no longer going to be Southside Airport.
No, but if you're going to have someone from the south side, for example, they know what their community needs, just like the airport
Do
knows
they?
what it
I mean,
needs. Yes,
come
they
on.
do.
It-
Are you going to tell me? I mean, I would welcome
How
Gerald,
about,
for
how
example.
about we just go ahead and make an
No.
autonomous board, or we get a list and we vote on them and we can be done with it. We don't have to have this conversation tonight, another one next
Because
week,
this
another one
is
week
going
after
to
that.
be
My
the-
God.
Because this is going to be the advisory board until we find an autonomous board. We don't have an advisory board doing any projects.
We
you-
don't need one until we get this. Let's get it done. Jerry's working on it.
I know he's working on it, but how much time do you
Has
think
that-
we're going to have,
Has that
Jerry?
stopped
I
any
spoke-
CRA function?
I spoke to the Attorney General's office today, and they said it was in the queue.
Okay.
Okay. They said they're very busy right now. They have a lot of requests in, so.
So if we have vacancies on the advisory, let's fill them.
That's what I'm trying to do in terms of, well, why are we going to create 3 advisories again, only to come back later and
We
undo
haven't-
them?
We haven't gotten rid of them.
They're not meeting. A lot of the people aren't even have their terms. They couldn't even have a quorum because they haven't been
So why aren't we
readmitted.
talking about that instead of this?
Because it's my thought that if we're going to have an autonomous board, why are we going to spin with 3 advisory boards and then break them up, create another board when we can do it all right now with one big advisory board? And if we become autonomous, they are the ones that will be the autonomous
There's a
board.
lot of ifs, ands, and buts there.
Well, no, but it's a very simple process to follow.
How is
Budget-
it, you're altering what we have in place.
We
In
have
the-
nothing.
What we do, we actually do. We have 3 advisories and we have a CRA board, as it has been for the past, 20-some years?
And how often have they met in the last 2 years?
Has it stopped progress? If there's vacancies, let's
There
fill
is, it
them.
has stopped progress. There's
it hasn't.
no activity on the south side. There's no activity on the
Have we ever
airport.
not voted on something that's come to the CRA?
Yes, we have. We're just the south side just haven't had a meeting. I don't know about the airport, but no one has submitted anything, you know.
Because they know there's no activity.
But we did that for the Main Street CRA. Activity has been happening with that.
Like
Not
what?
having an
Yeah, we
advisory
had-
has not stopped CRA items from coming.
Exactly.
Okay, so then we're gonna set the budget. We're gonna do all of the plan implementation.
If they don't show up for the meetings, we have to.
Nonetheless, we still are gonna have
We
to
still
have
have
an
to set the
autonomous
budget
board.
anyway because we are the CRA board.
I just disagree. I think that we need to move forward like
You
we have
disagree with
planned.
law?
It's not a law.
It is our law.
No, it's
We
just a
are
process.
the CRA and we have 3 advisory boards until we change it. So
Then
until
tell
we change
staff
it-
to start conducting 3 separate meetings every month with a mothership meeting at the end. That's more time on them to develop something that they don't have right now, the time or the staff to perform.
Do you have a problem doing it? City staff, do you have a problem doing it the way we've done it for 30 years?
Sir, direction of the council, we can do what you ask.
That's what I figured.
See you in 5.
Well, I just want to see what the sentiment of the council is. I'd like to make a motion.
I would
That-
love to vote on this board and be done with it.
I would too,
But we can't do it yet.
Why
Because we
not?
haven't created an autonomous board.
but we're going to do, that's not my motion. You don't know what I'm going to say. I would like to create an advisory board composed of 2 members from each CRA district and 1 at large, until we get response about being an autonomous board, and have that same advisory board be the new autonomous board.
But
when
Maria,
it happens.
if we did that now,
You need a-
then you wouldn't
you
have
have-
a.
you have to call a second.
Then you wouldn't have a quorum for any CRA to meet. If you only
You've
had-
got a list right
You
here of
have to call
individuals.
a second. A motion's been made. Is there a second?
And wait, I'm not done. Pending the approval of the vetted individuals on that list that are within the respective CRA districts, so that we can choose later who they're gonna be. All I'm wanting to do right now is to set the action in motion so that we can go ahead and start developing a new board.
We have a
Not
motion.
us.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
First of all, I believe in the past that every time we pick somebody to be on a board, whether it's a CRA board, pension board, planning and zoning, or whatever, we usually had the application in front of us to look at, to go over.
Right.
And before I pick anybody from the list or anybody else, and I'm sure these people are probably all qualified, all the names that I know, I'd be happy to see them on the board.
Right.
But there's a few that I don't, so I would like to see, one, what their addresses are, and see exactly why they want to be on a CRA board before I'd ever vote for one. at
And
this
staff
time.
can do all that vetting. What I'm asking for is for the concept of creating an advisory board until we can create the full-time autonomous board if the AGO ends up doing that. But in the meantime, we don't have any meetings. So having just one big board will set in motion of doing away with 3
Well,
small
why don't we have any
advisories.
meetings?
Hmm?
Why don't we have any meetings?
There haven't
Don't
been
they-
any items that come forward.
Well,
And when there was items come forward, there was a meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you still.
And
you-
I have a question too. I have a statement at least. I have a problem with this list because I do think that at the last time we discussed this, it was said that, even though I know you put some filters out there asking people, but it wasn't decided if there was going to be an autonomous board or not. So I do think that there's other people would have submitted applications, providing that they knew that this was going to happen. So, but with the idea, as a matter of fact, several people told me that. I didn't turn my application in yet because you all haven't decided. So to go ahead and select someone or even recommend people from this listing, I think would be the wrong thing to do.
Cart
That's
before
not
the
my
horse?
motion. My motion is to set the wheels so that we can start an advisory board composed of 2, 2, and 2 with 1 at large, so that they can eventually be either A, the autonomous board, or B, the advisory board for the entire CRA.
In which we would still have to vote
Which
on
we
it
would- right.
again. So
In the
this
end, we would
does
still have to meet. I
absolutely
get that.
nothing.
I'm just saying, we just need to streamline. Having 3 boards is,
Okay.
doesn't work.
Any other questions on the motion?
I do agree on streamlining, but I think I'd like to see the applications before I would pick somebody out of here, right?
I'm not saying to pick anyone off this
Okay.
list. What I'm saying is to set the wheels in motion to create one advisory board composed of 2, 2, 2, and 1 at large.
Okay.
Whether these people, and I even said, some of these we don't
Okay.
even know who they are. We still have to expand the list.
I am fine with that, but what happens if the wheels don't go in motion?
Well, we cross that
Exactly.
bridge when we get there.
Or we could just do nothing and keep what we have until we get there.
Exactly.
That's the most prudent and smart thing to do.
I want more grassroots hands-on from individuals of our community, and right now we don't have that. And our 3 advisory boards, we both know that, it's difficult obtaining 3 separate advisory boards. It's a lot of work for that to come into play. But other than that, it's time to unify the individuals that work on these boards and have them work together. I think it's very, very good to have someone from the airport be familiar with Main Street and South Side and vice versa. Right now, there is no camaraderie to that extent, and I think that would be good for the city. These are the future leaders of our community. They've been working, of the ones that I know that have been contacting at least me, they've been here for the long haul since the beginning. And they themselves are very much for this.
All right, let me ask you one question then. So what you're saying is that you're ready to move forward to have one CRA board so they can start meeting now?
One advisory board.
One advisory board, because we can't do autonomous yet.
And then whether we're autonomous or not comes at a later date. So
They
what
still
you
remain
want is just
advisory.
have 7 members to do the entire city and let them move forward. And if they got something that has to come before us, that's fine. And once they become autonomous, then we're out and they already inside.
You got it.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything still has to come before us because we
Okay,
still
well,
are the CRA board.
I guess in that case, I don't have a problem with moving forward with that.
I think that's the wrong thing to do right now. I think we should wait and see, but you know, that's just my opinion.
I think we're looking for work that doesn't need to be worked.
Exactly.
We're
No,
just making more
absolutely
work for
not.
ourselves for no reason.
It's actually 2 less meetings a month.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
No,
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. City managers report. Item number
Last thing I
16.
have for you is the report in front of you, all the red letter stuff
wait a
is.
minute, just before we move on, so this does what? It just says, what did the vote just say? What did it do? Now, I know what it said.
The
but
motion passed.
Passed for what? I need to
It's
write that down.
to
'cause I
set the
didn't-
wheels in motion
For
on
one
establishing a 7-member advisory board.
So what we're going to do next, council members, is vet these names, get their applications, because this was initially.
Wait, vet these names?
And any other names that come in, I suppose.
Any other names that come up?
So how do we, my question is that how did we decide to, how did we decide to get people on this board?
These names initially
Because like I said,
didn't.
at the last meeting, it wasn't put out there that that's what we were
Perhaps
waiting for.
1 minute of history. This started because before,
I know when it started,
Well-
and I know what I was accused of,
not a-
and I
No.
know what I'm saying, and
No. Okay.
I know that. But what I'm saying right now,
If I may, just for one minute, council member. This started back in late April, early May, I think, because the decision was made to do an autonomous CRA board.
Right.
And so, based on advice from council members, we said, oh, let's start getting names
Right.
together for when this autonomous board comes into play. Then a hiccup happened, and that was this
There you
notion,
go.
this notion of, not the notion, but the requirement that we couldn't do it. So we wrote back to these folks and said, hey, something happened, stay put. And then the request came in last week, who are these names we gathered? And that's what.
but we have not. I'm just making a statement. You have not smoothed out that hiccup yet, and the vote is already passed. But I just wanted to be known that I think that we're doing the wrong thing because you're doing extra work, and that you are doing stuff that has not been approved by this council here.
Oh, we're just following instructions. The vote was taken.
I understand that, but I think it's wrong.
All right. Jerry, do you have anything?
Call the roll.
Moving on.
I'm sorry. Okay. My time. Okay. The sheet in front of you's got the red letter stuff, which indicates the changes on the Brickell building, waiting for results of the second IAQ for the insurance adjuster to come here. Appraisal, I asked you last meeting what you wanted me to do in the way of getting an appraisal for a possible sale on the building. Appraisal will be approximately $2,000. I have not committed to that. Another question came up as to how many parking spaces were with the back parking lot. There are 44 parking spaces total. 2 of those have dumpsters on them. So you've got 42 actual usable spots, including the handicap spots. That's for the back there. If y'all want me to go forward with an appraisal, or if you'd rather wait for me to get you an actual cost sheet on what we've got in the building, I can do that. If you want to set the thing out for bid to sell it with the CRA's approval, of course, since it's their building. If you want to do that, there are 2 ways, according to our charter, that we can sell city property. One is by a closed bid process. The other is by a public auction. We have the ability to set whatever price we want to as an opening bid, or saying this is where we're starting. That would be up to y'all to decide that. But let me get all the information into it. Let me figure out what the insurance company's going to pay us back on it to where we know what our actual costs are in that building, include the initial sale. So once I get all those numbers to you, then y'all can figure out which way you want to go to. Right now, we know it's going to cost $2,000 for an appraisal, but I'm going to hold off on that unless you tell me otherwise.
That's a lot of money for an appraisal.
Considering it's already been done. And they're
Okay.
just updating the dates and the stuff.
Okay. That's not that much then. It's already been done.
I spoke with Conleana tonight before the meeting. His attorney is drafting up the agreement to go ahead and give us the property that's on the Yana property that the city owns in order that we can move the church service center. He understands the importance. He understands how critical this is, but his attorney, Rob Livingston, has been out of town until today. So that should be, I'm hoping by the next meeting, I can give you something better on that. I told you last week or 2 weeks ago that the Verona and two-lane safety buoys had been reset. I spoke a little too soon. Most of the chains on those have rusted off. They really don't even know what they are. I am looking at spending about $800 to buy some new buoys and new chains and anchors. So that's where we're at with that right now. The Wild building, I'm preparing an RFQ because the bids that we've got for destruction on that exceed the limit that I can actually spend. The RPAC recommendation will go to the Board of County Commissioners this month on changing the locations. I think it's the 16th or 18th. They've told us it's on their consent agenda, which should just go right on through. Still doing the holiday lighting stuff. I'll get with Maria's going to be the next one on that as soon as we get these recorded from what Ms. Gray did. Mall beautification and maintenance. It's a continuous project, and right now we are working on a master maintenance schedule for both the irrigation, for the grounds, the weeds. I think you probably noticed that with this little bit of rain that we've had, that things are already greening up quite a bit out there, and it's looking a lot better. TDC mural, okay, you don't need that. That was done. The small parcel annexation for Cruz should be on the next agenda. Lake Verona swim area, I spoke to several of you about that I actually closed the public beach because of the drowning that occurred in the lake. We did water samples. The samples came back this morning in acceptable ranges, so I reopened the beach this morning. Deputy Mayor Bernard, you had asked about the basketball court
Yes.
on Main Street. The backstop fence for that, which is 12 feet high and 15 foot wide, will cost approximately $1,775. The pole and basket, another $600. No estimate yet on what it's going to take to hook up all the lights in there. I don't know where we are. And I don't know if you want to do this or not, but we have a basketball court that's about 2 to 3 blocks away from there already over at Summit Street.
Yes.
It's
It's a mess.
it needs some love. Yep.
It needs everything.
But, well, you have an existing court and a pole there. It needs a net and some new lines painted. So
I don't think the flooring's acceptable.
concrete floor on it. I mean, I'll go look at it myself. I'll walk it, but just going by that, I don't know that you want to spend this money
Well,
on Main Street. It's up to y'all. I mean, we'll do it.
Well,
I'm providing the options for you.
I got you. I think the money's in the CRA. I think the fact that putting that court on Main Street is a great opportunity for us to show what we've done and put it out there for the public to see it being used. So
You're looking for more activity at Donaldson Park, basically?
This isn't at Dawson Park.
No?
this
No.
is at the
This is your parking lot.
Oh, the
that-
parking lot up
where
there,
the
yeah.
bathroom is, where nothing gets
Yeah,
used.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying the one that we've got over on Summit is 2.5, 3 blocks away. So do you want 2 basketball courts that close? I don't know.
The one on Summit isn't being used. Is that what you're saying?
Fix it up, could you use it then?
Built it, they will come.
The basketball
Yeah,
court
come to the
on
microphone, you
Summit
know.
does get used. The only thing is that it's kind of beat up. I think if you refurbished it and made it nice, the kids in the neighborhood, more of them would use it. Right now, you have the adults using it. I'd like to see the kids using it, honestly.
Adults gotta have something to do too.
Don't know that I could say who's going to use it and who's not.
I got a question.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
I don't know how you could do this, but, you know, at the tennis court, is there some way, just an idea, and don't stymie me out yet, that we could maybe put no parking after a certain time, that we could take an area of that and have it solely for the basketball? on the south side of the tennis courts there in that parking lot?
That's where this original
Yeah,
discussion
that's where it
came
originated.
from, was to try to do something over there.
Yeah, I know, and we already got, is it bad to do it there? I mean,
Because you'd be eating up 2 tennis courts.
We could see some potential problems
Yeah.
amongst 2 different groups
okay.
there. We could see that.
I
That's
just
why,
wondered.
that's why I
So many- that
suggested the
many
one on Main
tennis
Street.
players down
Yeah,
there.
that was my
I've got
original
a
thought.
tennis ball shooter in the back, an oscillating shooter in the back of my car. I wanted to go over
We're
there and
after
hit balls, and I couldn't
basketball
because it
right
was
now.
raining. No, I'm talking tennis. Leave the tennis alone.
Okay.
We had 4, now we have 2
Right.
courts, so I
Okay.
think we
Well,
need to
if the
stick with
money's
the
in
2.
the
Wow.
CRA, we need to do something for the kids, there's no doubt.
I'd be willing to either put it on the agenda now or next meeting that we look for putting CRA money and to put it there on Main Street.
You don't want me
And
to
then
get you the
not
rest of the
rehab
cost
the other
first?
one on Summit?
No.
And not rehab the one on Summit, or having 2?
Let me get you some options. Let me get some options on that. That's all I have.
Then I advise everybody to go look at the one on Summit because I wouldn't use it.
Okay.
That's probably why the kids don't.
That concludes our regularly scheduled agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the
Oh,
city?
wait, there's someone.
Gerald Snell.
Good evening, Gerald Snell, 320 East Washington Street, Avon Park, Florida. My pet peeve had been for a while. A few years ago, it was then City Manager Julian DeLeon, myself, Galen Thomas, former City Commissioner Terry Heston, B, and the public's representative. I would like to see. I left that meeting being very excited about possibly getting another Publix here in Avon Park. I feel as though nothing toward our current city staff and our city manager, David, nothing geared toward them, but I feel as though that city staff back then did not follow up as they should have. And every time I reached out, it was like, oh, well, we reached out to them, nothing back. Part of the problem, the rep that came to the meeting was in the process of retiring, so I'm sure it wasn't a big hoop de la for her to get done. But I would like to see, David, if you could reach out possibly, I know you're busy, in the future to Publix Corporation and see could we get another meeting and sit down and really talk with them. Thank you.
Okay.
Publix. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the city?
I have a couple quick things, it won't take long.
Go ahead.
For those who have to fill out a Form 1, just want to remind you that it has to be filled out and turned in no later than July 1st.
Yep.
Also wanted to bring to your attention the lighting thing we talked about having due to on Main Street. There are 2 examples. Both are on Lake Avenue. One's just about 10 feet north on Lake Avenue off of Main, and one's just about 10 feet south on Lake off of Main. So if you go down to Main, turn right or left, you can see exactly what the new lights are going to look like. The last thing is that when we hired David Flowers as our city manager, we hired him with no contract, and other than his payroll, I don't think we gave him many benefits. And I think that there's certain benefits that he should be allowed to have, and I think that I'd like to see HR, financial, whatever, come up with some type of executive package that would meet the needs of our basically our I'm not going to call you, our city manager.
And those can be put in the employee handbook. That way it's written in there and it's there.
Okay?
Because they were working on the employee handbooks, and I think I'd made that suggestion to go ahead and insert yourself in there and
Yeah.
separate yourself from the directors.
Correct. And we are doing that, but,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that, Deputy Mayor Bernard. And there's, through no fault of the council, everything was happening very fast.
Very
When y'all
fast.
brought me on, and it was like, okay, you got the job, and nothing was defined. I needed a sick day last week 2 weeks ago to have this thing taken care of, and I don't have any sick time. I have nothing, no vacation specified or anything yet. So
who would be drafting that package? Would it be Brenda Dane or?
Brenda is working on making changes to the employee manual right now. She and Brian Koji have had several discussions on this. I sent some of the revisions to each of y'all as well for some of your input, which we have gotten some back on it yet. But I've actually pulled it off the agenda for previous discussions because we're just not there yet. There's an awful lot of stuff in this employee manual that has just been to use Ms. Dane's words, this whole policy manual that we've got has been Frankensteined. It's been copied and pasted from here and from here and from here, and it's just, there's a lot of areas in our own manual that contradict themselves. So that's what we're trying to find, all those little idiosyncrasies and get those corrected, but it's going to take some time. I'm not going to tell you we'll have it back before June 24th for our next meeting, but at least hopefully by the first or second meeting in July anyway, so we can do that.
And I did meet with her, and my one suggestion is, because when I originally went to go look at the personnel policy that was online, it was well over 100 pages. And
120.
I said, I'm not going to print that. So I asked David to have somebody print me out a copy, which she did, with some of the changes that she was looking to do. My suggestion to her is that when she comes back with the changes, we do not need the entire policy, just the changes with the old way they were and the new changes, so we have some comparison, not just here's
And
the new changes.
that's our intent. When
Okay.
when we have a final draft of it, we'll have a final draft online, but instead of copying 120 times 6, we would just make you the
ones
pages
that are
that
changing.
actually changed.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
But I have a question with that, because some items relate to each other in so many ways. Like you said, there's like Frankenstein, section 1 or section 2. You have to go to section 12. I mean, there's going to be parts in there, because I've spent probably 9 hours on that employee policy.
One of
and
the
found
things-
all kinds of discrepancies in it, but,
Right.
I think that, I want the whole thing. I just don't want bits and pieces.
Sure.
That's
And-
just
and
me. You can
As
print
I
both
said,
sides.
it would be available to you by email. We'll make sure you've got the whole thing.
So you won't print it up for me? You want me to
I'll
print it
give
up?
you my copy, I'll look at it as long as you give it back.
Yeah, but your copy is.
I haven't
gonna-
made any marks on it. Well,
If-
maybe I have.
But I mean, they're saying they're making more changes to it, so what you have is already outdated.
If you want the whole thing printed, we'll print it for you, but it'll be back to back.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Did
Anything
you
else
say
on
you
that?
had no sick time? I called for you 4 times. They said you was home.
Any other questions?
You-
Anything for the good of the city? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.
43.
What time is it?
Jerry, I got a quick question for you.